We're streaming away. We're streaming away. We're streaming, we're streaming, we're streaming today. Hey, how you doing today? I've just decided I'm going to put music in this thing. I think I'm going to play this guitar more often. I'm going to play more music more often. This is going to be like the musical politics stream, whether you like it or not. And you'll like it. I know you will, because you're not a dumb person. Thanks so much, John. Glad you popped in. I'm just going to sing more often. I like to sing. I'm a good singer. I've got this guitar back here. I think it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to play a song. It's what's going to happen. Every single day, I'm just going to walk over there, I'm going to grab that guitar, and I'm going to play whatever song I want. Or maybe if my Patreons want to request a song for me to learn, I'll go and I'll learn it, and it'll be great. And all of you guys will be like, wow, John, you're so good. And I'll be like, oh, thanks, you're so great. And we'll all just love each other. And it'll be great. And it'll actually be great. It'll be super fun. Yeah. I've been talking with my friends about it and other people online. I've been like, not wanting to do music so much on the stream, and one of my friends was just like, shut up with that nonsense, that's stupid, you're an idiot, sing. I'm like, good point. So now I'm gonna how you been doing? Hey Ruth, how you doing today? How you doing? I'm so glad that I always get a little nervous on the weekend because I don't do the stream 2 days in a row, that I'm going to come in on Monday and I'm going to hit the stream button and nobody's going to show up. And literally every single time so far, I've hit the stream button and people have just like flooded in. So it's, I'm doing great. I'm doing great, Ruth. I hope you're doing good too. I went and finally got my health card. So next step, find out where I can get the vaccine. Let's go. Let's go. Get the vaccine. I don't know if I should be celebrating that so much, Ruth. How's it going for you with the vaccine hunt? Has any materialized nearby? Okay. So. First of all, happy birthday to Xi Jinping. Happy birthday, Xi Jinping. Good for you, leader of China. Well done. You made it around the earth one more time. Congratulations. How the Ford government's love of MZOs is increasingly benefiting private developers with ties to PC and local politicians. Great video on G7 today. What are your thoughts on the potential inequality that may result from a vaccine passport? I think that inequality is going to happen no matter what, vaccine passport or otherwise, right? And I do think that, like, I'm not going to put it past these capitalists to create like new forms of legislation and new forms of documentation to keep control of us. Like I suspect that that's the case. Hey Vince, how you doing? Like take this health card for example. When health cards were introduced, you literally had to like show up with your driver's license and they just like hand you a health card, right? Now I got to show up and you got to give them like your birth certificate, a passport, your driver's license. You gotta show them like a up-to-date document that has your address on it, and that address has to be collaborated by another piece of it. Like it's just enormous the amount of nonsense that you have to go through. And I feel bad for the bureaucrats, man. I feel bad for the people who are actually like pushing this stuff through because they're just so. And the lady who helped me was so sweet and so nice. And really worked with me because I brought like all of my documents and a stack of stuff, and it was looking like I was just like threading through, not landing on it. Like it was literally like I was just missing this like one piece of documentation, and she's like on the phone with her supervisor, talking about it, and she's like, yeah, he's got this, and the other thing, and like there's all this, and finally they just decided, no, we're just gonna push this through because like. I like literally what you're gonna send me away, get me to call the CRA, have them send me a piece of mail so that I can come back with all these documents again and do this all over again. How irritating and annoying. And they know that, right? They know that. And so they were very sweet to me and very kind and just like moved on with what was obvious, right? But it's so easy for me to perceive that like there could have been some other bureaucrat sitting there that day just being like, nope, sorry, you didn't do it. Bye. And it's like, you know, and I look at something like the vaccine passport, and the same shit's going to happen with that. That at first it'll start over here, and then steadily it'll grow, and it'll become this ridiculous thing until finally, like, if you don't have a vaccine passport, you can't be let into the Hilton, and so you're a different class of citizen altogether, right? Like but that's my general opinion of a lot of this documentation, you know, and that like even something like as innocuous as a driver's license, right? Like when driver's licenses were introduced, my dad, who is in Manitoba. My dad was literally like, yeah, you'd be driving down the street because you're a rural farmer. You're driving down the street and some police officer would pull you over and he'd be like, can I see your license? And you'd be like, I've never had a license. And the police officer would just be like, oh, yeah, okay. So just head down to this office here. They'll give you a license. It'll be $10. And the farmer would be like, government, always getting money from us somehow, eh? And the cop would be like, yeah. And then you go down to the office, literally show up and be like, I'm told I need a license. And they'd be like, okay, your information, here's your license. And now to get your license, you got to like go through like a whole rigmarole, right? Like there's a whole graduated licensing system. Like there's this enormous series of tests that you have to go through in order to get just your license. And that's always the way it goes with this kind of documentation. It just gets more and more invasive and larger and all of this. And I don't see why the vaccine passport would be immune to that either. And ultimately, I mean, how can you, like, it's going to create a class of citizenry. Like, it's just going to. But ultimately, I do think that class of citizenry already exists. It's just making it kind of official, right? It's just making it kind of like, oh, okay, like, you're a person who travels a lot. You're a person who needs to actually like have this kind of document. And whereas somebody like me who never travels, right? So it's just like another barrier, right? For a class of people, you know, because who's the vaccine passport actually for? Well, it's for global corporatists. That's who it's for, right? It's not for schmucks like me. It's not for guys like me who are like, oh, I'm going to go to Cuba. Ha! Let's go to Cuba, sweetie. What do you think? Let's go to Cuba. I'm gonna plan, you know, to get the cheap tickets and let's have a vacation. Go to Cuba. That's not for me, right? Like it's for neoliberal globalist corporatists who are literally like, I got to get on a flight, go to Boston, and then I'll get on a flight, go to New York, and then I'll get on another flight, head down to Los Angeles. Overnight there, right? Then I'll get on another flight and head down to Texas, and then I'll get on another flight and head back to New York, and that all happens within the space of 2 days, right? That's who the vaccine passport is for. So like that, and that's a class of citizen that already exists. It's just this vaccine passport is going to make it like official. You are in this class of citizenry because anybody else is just not going to bother with it. Right? Like, why would I would never, I barely even have like a passport. Like, I think my passport expired and I don't have money. I'm not going to get on flights and shit. Like, that's fine. You know, and if I can't drive there, I don't know if I want to go. Although I would love to go back to Cuba, honestly. I'd love to go back to Cuba. How the Ford government's love of MZOs is increasingly benefiting private developers with ties to PC and local politicians. This isn't really new news. I bet you this article is actually pretty old. No, June 14th. Oh, so MZOs, I forget what it stands for. I think it's like Municipal Zoning Order, if I'm not mistaken. But like, these are they're just rezonings, right? That the premier can do, and obviously what Doug Ford is doing, because Doug Ford is like this incredibly greedy, ridiculous sociopath. All he cares about is money for himself, right? Like that's it. Full stop. He has no thought goes into his head except how do I make money for Doug Ford, period. And so what he's doing is he's giving MZOs to private developers, right, who are bribing him, right, who are going to give him money to do this. Or if it's not a direct bribe, because direct bribes are easy to trace and are easy to look at and be like, hey, that's a direct bribe. And people will be like, yeah, that's a direct bribe. That's a problem. You can actually go to prison for this. So the way to bribe a politician is to just have them sit on the board of directors after they give you access to this privatized system. That's what Mike Harris did, right? Hey, Robin, how you doing? I wonder if the China pollution guy was. I hope so. I hope he does. I love having conversations about China. I love talking about China, Robin, especially with people who are harder on China than I am, because I learned something. Hopefully, they learned something. Because I don't know everything about China. I just defend China naturally because we're obviously like our culture is obviously psychotic, right? Like it's obviously psychotic. And so I generally defend other nations against us because we're so crazy. But I love to talk about China generally because I think it's a wonderful country, worth talking about. Anyway, so Doug Ford like gives an MZO to people, right? Yeah, notwithstanding clause passed, unfortunately, man, this government sucks. Yeah, and I'll talk about that in 1 second, Vince. So he gives MZO, so he gives zoning orders to a private developer, let's say a long-term care home, right? This is what Mike Harris did, right? Mike Harris gives an MZO to a private developer to build a long-term care home that is then privatized, right? And then they turn around and say, thanks for that, Mike. You can be on the board of directors, right? And you can oversee the systemic abuse of our elderly in these long-term care homes. And we'll all make a lot of money because the board of directors who are worthless, provide no value, do no work, and are pointless, their job is to siphon as much money away from the care of the elderly so that it justifies their existence. Or rather, it doesn't justify their existence, it pays them out. That's all they care about, because these guys are rapacious sociopaths, right? Who abuse the elderly, the disabled, right? Like, they don't care about any of that. What they care about is siphoning as much money as they can away. And the Mike Harris administration was really good at that. Mike Harris was actually, like, extremely good at abusing elderly people and abusing the disabled, right? And so Doug Ford, who also wants to abuse the elderly and who also wants to abuse the disabled so that he can make money for himself, is doing exactly what Mike Harris did. This is what happens when you elect conservatives. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, people, and the fact that there's still like 37% of the populace intending to vote for this guy, really, that's a major cultural crisis, if you ask me. Like, that's like, we got to start going back to church. Like, that's the level. Like, we got to start like doing something to start rebuilding communities. We got to start doing something to start rebuilding the idea that we should actually give a shit about one another. If 37% of us are looking at Doug Ford, who is like a sociopathic megalomaniac who's actively stealing from everybody, and 37% of the populace is going, yep, Doug Ford all the way. Like, that's a major, 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 major cultural crisis. Like, we got to start sending people back to church. Like, and we got to start looking at people who are not going to church and start being like, you're not going to church? That's fucking weird. Like, and like, I don't know church, right? But like, we got to start erecting some kind of institution who's like, with the objective of actually giving a shit about one another, right? But the notwithstanding clause, that indicates how desperate they are, right? So, Vince, you're right. Like, it passed and it's unfortunate and the government sucks and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that they are actually passing this legislation, right, indicates that they are extremely desperate, right? It's a very desperate move. It's something that literally everyone can point at and be like, this guy does not give a fuck about democracy. And they are correct. He does not. And because all he cares about is money for himself. And it's going to backfire, right? This is the thing, right? This kind of move backfires because literally you can say in any advertising you actually do, look at what Doug Ford did, and people are going to be like, fuck, that's creepy and weird, right? Like, you can get away with a lot of bullshit. Like, Doug Ford's getting away with these MZO things, right? He's getting away with that. He's going to sit on the board of directors of a long-term care home and abuse the elderly and make money doing it. He's going to do that. That's Doug Ford's legacy, just like Mike Harris's legacy. But something like this notwithstanding clause, people do not like it when you fuck with the democratic system. They do not like it. Like, if you are doing shenaniganry in the democratic system itself, you are essentially saying to, and even like the thickest Ford Nationer knows that what you are saying is go fuck yourself. You get less options. Your opinion is less valid, right? And so it's going to backfire. Yeah, and Jeff, first of all, how you doing, bud? Thanks for being here. It's the religious right voting for him. I know, right? I know. Like, the idea, we got to stop calling these right-wingers religious. Like, they're not. They don't read this book. Like, I've got a Bible sitting right here. I can open it to almost any passage. And like, they don't read this book. They don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about the history of Christianity. They don't know anything about the history of even evangelicalism. Like, they don't know anything, right? They're and it's purposefully illiterate at this point, right? Like, literally, you can go to YouTube and type in Bible audiobook, and someone will just read the Bible into your ear, right? Like, if these Christians actually gave a shit about the Bible and gave a shit about what any of this stuff says, they would be the ones who are tearing people like Doug Ford down. They would be the ones who would be standing up, actually tearing this whole bullshit apart. But they don't care. It's just a smokescreen. It's the same shit the capitalists always do, right? They prop up themselves as moral speakers and all of this. And so what a sociopath does is they walk into the room and they say, okay, who's the most moral person or most moral ideology? And that's what I'm going to adhere to in appearance, right? And just when I'm at my most powerful, that's when I'll start backstabbing bitches, right? Because I'm a sociopath. These guys are fucking sociopaths. Like, and it's time, and honestly, like, I released that G7 video, and one of the number one comments on it on, I believe, BreadTube was, oh man, yeah, thanks for calling these guys sociopaths. Like, what else would you call them? Like, what else can you call them? Like, literally Mike Harris already, and then Doug Ford is duplicating this, has erected a system that intentionally and on purpose abuses our elderly, right? Like, you're a fucking nightmare sociopath if you're doing that. Like, that's shit that wouldn't even come, like, that doesn't even happen in like the communist hellholes that we hear about. Like, okay, show me the long-term care home where the elderly are abused. Has that happened? No? Go fuck yourself then. Like, it's unbelievable. I'd be fine with just re-education camps. Yeah, but these guys are so far down this crazy rabbit hole that if you actually tried to like erect any kind of like education system or educate people as to, you know, what is right or what is wrong. One of the big things that happened post World War II in Germany, it was this really interesting and enormous push by the, I don't want to say Catholic Church. I think it was the Anglican Church. Could have been the Lutherans too. Anyway, one of the large churches in Germany actually ended up going in front of the Supreme Court and saying one of the reasons why Hitler was able to rise is because we removed religious learning and ethical study from our schools, right? So it just didn't become part of our discourse any longer, right? And the Supreme Court agreed with this with a stipulation that the Catholic Church or the Lutheran Church or whichever church can go into school and teach what it wants, but if somebody doesn't want to be taught by these churches, then the schools need to provide a class, a secular ethics class. And so now if you go to a German school, right, you are taught either your religious studies or ethical or ethics, right? We don't have that. And it shows, right? And it shows. We allow these sociopaths to take power, and 37% of us are going to keep voting for it. I'm alright, off for a few days. Yes, I've been seeing this, Jeff. Starting my hashtag #ThisIsFordNation movement. Hoping everyone will join by sharing articles and pictures on social media using the hashtag. That is such a good idea. That is such a good idea, Jeff. That, yeah, teaching children ethics, that's immoral, right? Even if you do it with the book that you're holding, right? Like, even if you're doing it with the book that you're holding. Quick thing on that, like, I think that this hashtag is a great idea, Jeff. I encourage everybody who is seeing this, start using hashtag #ThisIsFordNation. If you spread around anything about Ford, use this hashtag because we do got to be thrusting this into these guys' face. Like, these people are sociopaths. There's no other word to use, right? There's just no other word to use. And they need to know. They need to know that we know. And the wider populace, which is obviously not paying attention, needs to know. And opinion. Americans don't want to return to low-wage jobs. What? Americans don't want to return to low-wage jobs? What? Holy cow. Oh, I can't read the article, cause paywall. But, like, there's, like, the idea that there are articles like this going around, and like, of course, the capitalist class is going to present this as if it's like, oh, we're giving benefits to these people so they don't want to go work. Benefits are the problem. It certainly has nothing to do with the decades of abuse that we've laid out on the populace. Certainly has nothing to do with our systemic, intentional degradation of the society. Certainly it has nothing to do with us actively working to cause angst, anxiety, despair, and depression in the working class. And then we turned around and created a benefit system that was government funded that we could have done all along. But because we're fucking sociopaths, we need to enslave people to get off, right? We literally cannot have orgasms unless we are hurting people, right? So if you actually created a society that had things like a basic income, rent controls, right? Created an environment where people could actually live and thrive and grow and have children and have a decent life, if you actually did that, then that means that we can't get off. So, you gotta make your decisions here. So yeah, of course, and on top of that, like, people understand that, like, they understand inside of their heart that climate change destroys us, right? We know, it's right in front of our faces. It's really, really fucking obvious. And if I'm like a 20-year-old, right, and I'm being told, hey, you got to go work at McDick's. Oh, by the way, in 5 years the world is going to burn down. Fuck you. Like, fuck you. I'm going to go live my life, right? I'm going to go try to deal with the fact that our entire society is structured to collapse and take the entire ecosystem with it. And so in the small amount of time that you sociopaths have given me to have whatever kind of livable life I can have, I'm not going to spend 1 minute of it working for fucking McDick's for $7.25 an hour. Get fucked. Get fucked. Bye-bye. Not coming. And then they dare turn around and say it's because, the benefits are too high. No, it's because we're waking up and realizing that you're fucking nightmares. Like, you're nightmare sociopaths. Like, why would anyone work for you? Why would anyone work for you as you actively attempt to destroy us? Open the article in an incognito window? Would that work? I'm not going to do that, but I'll try next time. The problem for the capitalists is if they give new deal style concessions, then a dam is going to break and people are going to go nuts. So austerity is the only response they have available to them. Well, yeah, people are going to realize that the capitalists are useless, right? They're pointless. And people are really starting to recognize that, capitalists don't create wealth, we do, right? And if they're not going to actually even share it with us, right, then get fucked. I don't think my opinion will change much if I read through the article, honestly, Dystopia. Oh, yeah. Send in the tanks, right? The new report details first count. Unfortunately, in the title, it's like, no, it's just Zenz again, right? Like, it's... Adrian Zenz every few months releases a new article, and then that circulates into Radio Free Asia and the other CIA, National Endowment for Democracy places, and then that gets picked up by Reuters, and then suddenly the BBC is reporting on an Adrian Zenz article where Adrian Zenz literally doesn't talk to anybody and does things like he'll actually go speak to like the terrorist groups and ask them, oh, hey, how many people do you know got arrested? And they'll say, like, I know 2 people, right? And then he's like, 2 people. So that means there's 8 million Uyghurs. Like, this is literally what he did. He literally said, talked to terrorists in terrorist organizations, found out they told him that, oh, well, from our whole village, right, from our whole community, maybe like 8 people got picked up in this situation, and so he extrapolates from 8 million people overall. It's just like an embarrassment. There's like literally no there's no reason to believe this nonsense that Adrian Zenz is saying. And Adrian Zenz, on top of that, is literally walking around saying things like, I've been sent by God to destroy China, right? Oh yeah, I'm really gonna, please put that in front of my face. I'm really gonna take that seriously. That's super credible. People have had time to stop and think, and I believe some of them don't want to go back to terrible jobs at any wage. Yeah, people are beginning to realize that their time is their most valuable commodity, right? That the time they have is their most valuable commodity. That if you are spending your time for the benefit of, these sociopaths who literally just go golfing and don't do anything, you're wasting it. You're literally better off living in a trailer out in the boonies somewhere, staring at the sky every day, right? Because these guys are not, and because they're gonna pay you like a meaningless subsistence wage that doesn't even pay your rent, that doesn't even cover your bills, and then at the end of the day, they're gonna kick you out on the street, and guess what? The sun's gonna burn down all the fucking crops, and then we're gonna starve to death. Like, yeah, really want to participate in this fucking system. Really on board with that. Oh, the Tyee. I really like the Tyee. Truth and Reconciliation, a Living History. The horror has been shown. My mom actually had a really interesting conversation with me about this. Where she's in Manitoba, where they built the... it's not called the Truth and Reconciliation Museum. The Human Rights Museum. They built the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. And she really noticed... that this time, the Kamloops, like the mass graves, many people who she had previously spoken to about stuff like the Truth and Reconciliation movement, about the 60s Scoop and all this kind of stuff, who were sort of like, about it, are now like really coming to terms with like, there is something about a mass grave of children that you just can't whistle by that one, right? It's no longer abstract. It's no longer this just like amorphous event that happened, I guess. Now you literally have a grave. There's 215 children in an unmarked grave. You got to admit that something fucked up happened. Like, you gotta. Like, you can no longer sit there and pretend. And if you do, you lose credibility completely. Like, literally, we can just ignore everything you have to say. If you're pretending like a grave full of 215 kids doesn't mean something. And so I think it's hit people. And I'm noticing this a lot recently. Like, the the Israel-Palestine situation, like the last time they bombed the shit out of Gaza, right? Very recently, incidentally. The whole, like, both sides narrative just didn't work. It just didn't have the same veracity. It didn't hold the same truth to it. Because guess what? We've got fucking eyes. We can see. Like, this place is a bombed-out shell where people can't get clean drinking water. This place is a pristine, skyscraper-filled city. These guys are shooting bottle rockets. These guys are dropping fucking bombs from fighter planes. Right? Like, does Canada produce anything, or are you guys like us at this point? No, we don't produce a thing. We don't have a manufacturing base. Mining, like, our resource base is pretty much it. Like, we harvest wood, lumber. We do oil, obviously, but like mining. 75% of the world's mining companies are based in Canada. So we've done everything we can to, but at the end of the day, like, we're very much like America in that we've created a parasitic financialization system, right? That's how we have structured ourselves, so that most of our economy is just wasted in this paper shuffling, right? Of just financialization. You have this financial thing so deep and absurd is this financial system that we all pretend is meaningful but is completely worthless, that when economists talk about the economy, they have to use terms like the real economy, right? Because they'll talk about, like, the economy, and they'll talk about all this kind of stuff, and then somebody will actually stand up and say, yeah, but that's not actually achieving anything. Like, you're not building roads, you're not building infrastructure, you're not building electric anything, you're not doing anything. You're literally just shuffling papers around one another. So it's completely fucking meaningless, right? And like something like 40% of our economy is like this, and we're supposed to believe that, like, these banks and this financial sector, like, it actually matters. It's completely irrelevant. You can't eat money. Like, COVID made people think about the meaning of their lives. And mortality. Mortality, yeah. If 2 to 4 hours of driving is worth $10 an hour, that working from home is more important. Buying coffee for $25 a day is worth it. Yeah. America. 4 mass shootings in 6 hours leave 38 wounded, 6 dead across the USA, and they're going to do fuck all about it. Right? That's the horror of all of this, right? Is that America cannot learn. It's not actually capable of learning, right? Like, they have, like, they've got to do something about this, right? Anybody with any rational thinking in their head, or even a soul in their heart, would be like, we've got to do something. Like, we've got to try something. But they don't. They don't do anything, right? Because fundamentally, the billionaires don't give a fuck. Like, they're literally sitting there being like, well, what are the gun sales up? Good, more money for me. Great, I don't care. Shoot those people, that's fine. Anyway. Friendly reminder that slavery is very much alive in the United States of America. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, this idea, and I encounter these people all the time who seem to think that, like, oh no, America and capitalism is, like, free and all this. Like, slavery is super alive. Like the entire system is structured to funnel black men into prisons. That's the whole point, right? They've privatized their prison system. You can buy a judge. We have many judges who have been fined, because it's always a fine for a white dude, because they're actively attempting to funnel black men into prison centers in order to and when these judges funnel these men into prison centers, when they funnel these guys into prison centers, the judge gets a kickback, right? So it's like this incestuous relationship that is slavery. Like, there's a reason why America has 22% of the world's prison population, right? Like, there's a reason why that's happening. And it's because America loves slavery, right? They love slavery. And Beer Drinker 86, thanks for being here, first of all. Thanks for being here. Jobs are slavery. I mean, in the current configuration, that's absolutely the truth. It's a wage slave system, right? It's a wage slave system. You work or you die. That's the arrangement. Work or die. This is a really great time, by the way, to maybe chime in and say, hey, could you donate to my Patreon? I feel like such an asshole doing that. But here's the reality. You know, you sit down, you got to pay your fucking bills somehow. I would love it if I could get enough support and get enough financial energy behind me so that my full-time job became telling these assholes that they're assholes. This is like my greatest hope. I have this like little, not even a little guy inside of me. It's just like a guy inside of me who's so desperate so that when one of these guys says to me, get a job, I can turn around and say, I have a job. My job is to call you an asshole. That's my job. I'm paid to do that. So please, consider donating to my Patreon. Okay. I didn't realize that I have so much, built up, rage energy right now. Today I was very sleepy today. I was super sleepy today. And then suddenly now I'm, sitting here actually talking, and I'm like, fuck. Blah, 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 blah. Well, they do. It's called putting metal detectors in impoverished schools to bolster the school-prison pipeline. Yep, you got it, Robin. You got it. Yeah, you're right. The horror is no matter what happens, everything just goes on. And nothing comes to a head, nothing is resolved. Well, and it is starting to come to a head, right? Articles like this, Americans don't want to return to low-wage jobs. This does eventually come to a head. Occupy Wall Street did happen, right? That occurred. We all know it. They're never going to report on it. Corporate media is doing everything it can to be like, oh yeah, that didn't happen. No, Occupy, what do you, no, that didn't, And same story with the George Floyd protests, right? No, that very, very brief period of time, that's fine, all of that, right? It's all gone, right? But, they're still murdering black people in the streets. They're still doing all this shit. Nothing's actually changed, right? And we all know that eventually we all have to get into the streets. We all know that that's the truth. That it's the only thing these fucking sociopaths are going to respect. It's the only thing. And articles like this that are just yeah, Americans don't want to return to low-wage jobs, that's a form of protest. I'm not going to go, I literally will only go to work a job for any of these fucking guys if I literally cannot pay rent. That all my nest egg is gone. Everything is completely gone. I don't have even a penny. And even then, I'm going to be looking around pretty hard for a job in a shelter, for a job in any institution that's actually attempting to deal with the fallout of this fascist organization that's destroying us. That's where I'm going to try to put my energy. But I'm not going to participate in any of this. This is fucking nightmare shit. And, I feel I feel like a total asshole when I just go grocery shopping. I go grocery shopping, and it's called grocery shopping because it's gross. Because you fucking go up there, and there's some, teenage girl who's just standing there being like, oh, hey, do you have an Optimum card today? Beep, beep, beep. And I'm looking at her being like, shouldn't you have a childhood? Shouldn't you live your life? Shouldn't you be going off, getting laid, and, going to concerts, and, smoking drugs, and, fucking doing stuff? Instead, you're here. Beep, beep, beep. Dude, fuck that. Fuck all that. That's bullshit. They're trying to get everyone to a new stabilized, albeit more immiserated new normal, which will be worse than the last new normal. And what's so, at this stage in the game, the decline is beginning, right? And they know it. They understand. That's what this great reset thing is all about, right? Is to get us used to the idea where the chaos that they have created and have inflicted on us, right? That this worship of money and the worship of chaos, what else is let the market decide but just a complete chaos worship ideology of a death cult. Basically, they're chaos death knights being the invisible hand will decide. The hand shall decide, right? It's literally just saying, let chaos reign. if someone could explain the difference to me between the invisible hand of the market will decide and let chaos reign, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, my grocery store employs as many disabled people as they can, because why wouldn't someone with a missing arm be working full time, right? And what's so asinine about this system of labor that we have in place is that the actual work that should be done, right? Let's be straight. There is work that should be done. We want garbage men. We want sanitation services, right? We want we want grocery store clerks, right? We want this kind of shit. All of that work could be dispersed into the populace, right? So that instead of having one person working 60 hours a week, you have 10 people working 10 hours a week, right? If somebody came up to you and said, hey, I need you to work one 10-hour shift a week, right? Moving all the garbage bins, you'd probably be down for that. Especially if that was a society that was also ensuring that your bills were paid, that you had plenty of food, right? Seems like a fairly rational, suitable trade, right? Especially if the 10 hours of work you didn't just get siphoned to a group of sociopaths that are trying to blow up the nation, right? If we actually were doing things for the benefit of the people around us, right? But you know what that means? That means places like Starbucks would have trouble. Fucking who gives a shit? The artillery barrage had launched to cover an Israeli Special Forces unit commanded by Naftali Bennett. Oh yeah, just friggin' more Israel being Israel. MPs accused of secret law making in rush to pass controversial C-10 broadcasting bill. I have seen article after article after article after article after article about Bill C-10. And it really is just a lesson in media manipulation, manufacturing consent, and how gullible and easy it is to dupe the populace of Canada. Bill C-10, right? Bill C-10 literally takes existing legislation that has been in this country for 20 years, right? Broadcasting legislation, and says we should have the same legislation for online broadcasters, right? It's not controversial at all that there's enormous billion-dollar broadcasters, Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, right, who are just operating in Canada and able to just sidestep around the legislation that's already been written for broadcasters and has been in Canada for decades, if not longer, and is completely fine and nobody gives a fuck, and in fact actually helps the populace because it means that your artists actually get more support. It means that everybody can actually be involved in the process, and we're not overwhelmed by Americanism, and we actually end up with some semblance of Canadian culture. But what everybody's freaking out about is, this is gonna let the government shut down my YouTube channel. No, it fucking won't. And you literally have to be thick to think that it would, right? You literally have to be thick to think that Bill C-10 is going to allow the government to shut down your speech. You know why you have to be thick? Because Bill C-10 does not supersede the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It doesn't supersede the Charter of Rights and Freedom. Hey, Devin, how you doing? Thanks for being in here. I will definitely talk about lobbying groups. You just give me a minute, okay? So, Bill C-10 does not subvert the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, okay? And if somebody were to take Bill C-10 and say, I'm going to shut down that YouTube channel because I interpret Bill C-10 that lets me do that, then guess what? They didn't need Bill C-10 to do that in the first place. They're just being assholes, right? And you can launch a charter complaint against them and you would win, right? Because guess what? The government can't shut down your YouTube channel. And anybody with a brain in their head, right? And the fact that the media is not just walking up to lawyers and being like, well, what's this actually mean? And the lawyer would be like, no, it doesn't subvert the Charter of Rights and Freedom. In fact, the Globe and Mail, which regularly doesn't report on shit and regularly obfuscates and is just like the wing of the Thompson family fortune. But when they report on something, they do a bang-up job on it. They came out with a whole thing, and that was their conclusion. They're basically just like, yeah, this it makes YouTube push Canadian content, right, to a degree. It's going to do exactly what it's done for Canada broadcasters for decades. And it's not going to let the government, it doesn't give the government any superpowers or something because we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? And no legislation that you pass is going to subvert that, right? And so this is continuously being pushed to us, right? Because it gives the illusion and the appearance that our media exists in order to keep the government accountable, right? This has absolutely nothing to do with keeping the government accountable. This has everything to do with, first of all, trying to kill a piece of legislation that actually passes legislation to regulate Facebook, YouTube, Netflix, big, gigantic, billionaire tech owners who are just blasting media across our airwaves without any regulation whatsoever. So, yeah, these guys should be regulated in the first place, for sure. And then on top of that, so it gives the illusion that we're actually doing our due diligence and we're actually trying to inform the Canadian public, when the reality is they're just jamming their airways full of nonsense so that you won't pay any attention whatsoever to actually serious issues, like, let's say, the Canada Infrastructure Bank, right? The Canada Infrastructure Bank, which is like literally a fascist organization, literally a fascist institution that's just sitting here being like, hey, we're just going to entrench billionaire wealth. We're going to make sure that any infrastructure project that gets built we have to literally beg billionaires to make it happen, right? It's going to plunge us into a dark age, if we're not already heading towards one. And we just don't talk about it. We literally just don't talk about it. Instead, we get another fucking article, fucking a 300,000th article about Bill C-10. That Bill B-Ben is going to come in, it's going to bring in, and then George Orwell said, and we're all just supposed to be like, wow, that's real, and you are a serious news organization. So it's just total fucking bullshit. And Devin, to your point, lobbying groups are just bribe. They just exist to bribe people, right? That's all they exist for. It's just a way for billionaires to bribe politicians legally. That's what a lobbying group is. Ugh. Okay. I gotta use the bathroom. Give me a second. Did you hear about Trudeau wanting to cut back CRB now? Well, they already did that. Like, it's not that they want to, it's that they already did that. Hope he loses votes for this? Yeah, I mean, the goal of the Trudeau administration is to trickle out the disaster, right? Is to make it so that instead of just cutting people off, like in one big slice, and having like 100,000 people get homeless on the streets all at once and having to deal with them, right? You just steadily trickle them out, right? You just steadily trickle them out so that, you get a couple thousand in July, you get a couple thousand in September, you get a couple thousand in October, a couple thousand in November, right? They just kind of trickle out so that instead of like a big block where it's like a big news story and like Trudeau abandons people, right? It's this steady, slow kind of trickle out, and nobody reports on it, and nobody notices, right? And then suddenly there's like a whole group of people who are living in tents in the middle of the city, and everybody's like, where did they come from? Where did they come from? Because they're so fucking stupid and illiterate that they don't know anything. It just kills me. And this whole like, I've literally heard a liberal argue that no, they're reducing the CRB because now they're passing basic income legislation, right? So they're going to get rid of the CRB and they'll pass basic income legislation. And my response to that is like, what are you, fucking gullible? Yeah, you notice how right before an election they're starting to move basic income legislation through the House, right? And so right as the election's happening, they can be like, look, we're actually moving legislation through the House. And everybody will be like, oh, wow, the liberals are actually serious about passing basic income legislation for real. That must be true. They've never lied, ever. And then they'll get elected, and if they get the majority, the first thing they'll do is kill it, right? That'll be the first thing they do if they get the majority. And if they get the minority, their strategy is to just draw it out, just like, nice and long, right? So it won't be passing the basic income nationally. It'll be like, let's go to Charlottetown in PEI, find 500 people, and do a basic income pilot that's supposed to take 4 years. And oh yeah, those people who are in the CRB, now that that's over, yeah, they live in tents in the middle of Montreal or Toronto or whatever. But who gives a fuck about them? You know, they just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and get a job, right? And then you know the 4 years will start to happen, and then given how politics actually works, the conservatives will probably get an upswing in power, and then what'll they do? They'll kill the basic income, right? That's the strategy. It's obvious. It's right in front of you. You have to be stupid to not realize that that's what the liberals are doing. And guess what? That's what liberal voters think. Like, liberal voters literally think that the liberals are being genuine about this, that they're actually trying to pass a basic income. Like, it's infuriating. I had a 2-hour argument with a friend over that. They are convinced that Trudeau is a communist. Oh, I can't believe there is a single person alive who genuinely thinks Trudeau is a communist. That's embarrassing. Tell your friend that he's a fucking moron. From me to him. And I will say that directly to his face. I will launch a Zoom call on this channel to call him a fucking moron for calling Trudeau a communist. What an embarrassing, idiotic, stupid fucking thing to say. Like, and you know what? That is actually a strategy that is being pushed forward by the capitalist class. Because if they can convince enough people that Trudeau is a communist, then what do you think's going to happen if an actual communist gets in? What do you think they'll actually say if a real communist shows up, right? How do you think they're going to react to that? If Justin Trudeau, who literally is erecting fascist institutions, who is literally doing everything he can to like, during this pandemic, he gave 5 times the amount of money to neoliberal corporatists than he did to the rest of the populace. Like, your friend is an idiot. Like, your friend's just fucking dumb. Ugh, probably not your friend either. Sounds like Trudeau is managing the decline just like we are. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And ultimately, the Trudeau administration looks at the passage of the CERB, like how they passed the CERB and everybody got $2,000. You know, how they literally passed a basic income in a week because they always could have and they always can. They could do it right now if they wanted to, right? They just choose not to because ultimately they look at that as a mistake. Because ultimately they look at that and say, oh, we panicked and we made an error. We actually helped people. Big mistake. Bill C273 is a complete farce. MP Julie Griftowitz. I love it. I love it. Hey, DM, how you doing, bud? Only wants votes from the gullible Kool-Aid drinkers. Yeah, that's the strategy. Government, slightly bigger government equals communism. They're coming for your toothbrush. They call Biden a communist. It's just whatever they don't like. Same with cultural Marxism. Well, and it is a way to simply, like, if an actual communist showed up, and if an actual communist started to push forward a thing, like, it's like when you see a soccer player, right? And he, like, is walking by someone, and then this person comes by and they, like, slightly graze their shoulder, right? And then they're like, oh my God, and they're, like, rolling around on the ground, and, like, the ref is coming over and it's, like, carting, and they show it up on the screen, and the whole crowd is just like, brr, brr. But I've spoken to soccer players who do that, and I've said, don't you think that makes you a jerk? And they go, no. I do that when they graze me like that to tell them, this is what I'm doing when you barely touch me. What do you think I'm going to do if you punch me? What do you think happens? Right? And it's the same exact story. It's the exact story. Well, they're not going to do McCarthyism yet. Like, McCarthyism is straight up, like, blacklisting people. McCarthyism is straight up, like, if you're a communist, you can't be part of the civil society, that kind of thing. But we're at the stage directly before that, where it's preparing people, right? There's a lot. We're in a real preparatory phase, right? They're preparing us to accept war with China. They're preparing us to accept an ideological war against communism, right? We're not quite there yet, but it'll happen. It'll be soon. Yeah, ask them to define what communism actually is. Ask them to define it. They have no fucking idea. They got no fucking idea whatsoever, right? And it's just like, and then when they want you to define it, right? Like, you literally have to provide, like, a dictionary version of it. You can't actually talk about history. You can't actually talk about, like, the long, like, journey of it. And my favorite is sometimes people will attempt to peg me with, like, well, communists want to get rid of religion. And I'm like, literally Karl Marx writes this, like, as a theory in one of his books. And, like, no actual communist society has even attempted it, because the reality of doing that would be, like, it would result in an ethnic cleansing. So, like, we don't accept that anymore. It's not, like, something that defines communism. But if you don't know anything about it, you can just say what you want, right? TYT is painting Aaron Mate as a Russian agent. They are painting anyone left as pro-Russia. Yeah, such a shame about the Young Turks, man. Such a shame about what happened to the Young Turks. They just got bought, right? They stand as a real, like, everyone's got a price. Everyone's got a price. And there's your evidence, right? The Young Turks used to be leftists. They used to be on our side. They used to be at least putting forward a message that was coherent, that actually made sense. But calling someone like Aaron Mate a Russian agent is embarrassing. It's just fucking embarrassing. Like, literally the guy is standing up and telling the truth about events that are occurring across the globe. It just turns out that the truth goes against the imperial agenda, right? Communism is when free healthcare and college tuition. Yeah, right. And to me, what's so fucked up about that kind of statement, Devin, is I look at something like free healthcare and college tuition, and I'm just like, that just seems human, right? Like, I don't see that as, like, a communist thing at all. Like, I take a look at that and just be like, no, that's just, like, how you run a sane, rational society. Why wouldn't you want people to have access to healthcare? Why wouldn't you want people to have access to college tuition? Like, you want to live in a society where those things are available, don't you? Like, don't you want to live in a society where people aren't desperate, like, aren't dying of shortages of insulin? Don't you want to live in a society where people are actually intelligent because they went to school because that was available to them? No, you'd like to live in a society filled with unhealthy people who are, like, shooting each other up, and they're too stupid to even find a book if they knew how to, because they never went to school because it's fucking too unaffordable for them. That's the world you want to live in? I don't even think that's communism. Like, I just think that that's fucking rational. I don't know who bought TYT. I don't remember. I don't know. Pretty sure Senk was always a grifter. I mean, you could convince me that he was always just following the money. You could. Or they think communism is what capitalists actually is. That's the worst. When they like literally are like, in a communist society, a small group of people own all the wealth and everybody works for them and they don't get to decide what they want to do. And I'm literally like, that's capitalism. Like, yeah, Sank is just a neoliberal. He certainly is just like, he's been bought. I mean, the fact that he's obviously tanning himself. You notice this? You notice that he's like obviously tanning himself now? Like, that's weird. That's just a weird decision. They took $20 million from a Clinton crony. Yeah, that's right. Because stupid people are easier to control. That's exactly right, Dave. Hey, Dave, I haven't seen you in a long time, bud. Glad you popped in. Glad you're here. Hope you're well. Yeah, anyone who thinks Trudeau is a communist is a certified Rex Murphy fanboy. For sure. Okay, guys. I said this at the beginning of the thing, and I'll say it again here. You see this guitar back here? That's not just for show. I love playing guitar. I was speaking with my friends and speaking with some of my Patreons and people around me, and everyone says, just play one song. Just play one song a day. See how you feel about it. See how everybody else feels about it. So I'm going to pick up the guitar and I'm going to play a song now. If it sucks too bad, right? But it brings me joy, and I hope it brings you joy too. So here we go. I definitely forgot to tune this. So hopefully this isn't horrible. That's okay. Okay. And because it's my first time doing this with any regularity, I'm gonna play something that's like kind of a little silly, but I'm gonna play it super well, and you're gonna love it, right? So this is a song from my youth that speaks to the spirit of the age, all right? So let's have some fun. Oh baby, baby, how was I supposed to know something wasn't right here? Oh pretty baby, I shouldn't have let you go. Now you're out of sight, and show me how you want it to be. Tell me now, I need to know now what we got. My loneliness is killing me. I must confess I still believe when I'm not with you I lose my mind. Give me a sign, hit me baby one more time. Oh pretty baby, the reason I breathe is you. Girl, you got me flying. Oh pretty baby, there's nothing that I wouldn't do. Now you're out of sight, and show me how you want it to be. Tell me now, I need to know now what we got. My loneliness is killing me. I must confess I still believe when I'm not with you I lose my mind. Give me a sign, hit me baby one more time. My loneliness is killing me. I must confess I still believe when I'm not with you I lose my mind. Give me a sign, hit me baby, hit me baby, hit me baby, hit me baby, hit me baby one more time. I give myself a 7. I could have been better. 7. That was okay. That was okay. Map song? Lonnie. Hey Lonnie, how you doing? Yeah, let's open the map. Let's do it. It's a map, it's a map, it's a map, it's a map. We're opening the map, map, map. It's a map, it's a map. Here's the map. We're opening the map, map, map. It's map time, it's map time. Everyone loves the map. It's map time, it's map time. Everybody clap, 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 clap. Oh, better than the original? Oh, don't disparage the beautiful Britney Spears like that. Britney, she was very young when they forced that on her. When they forced this life on her. She deserves to just like live in peace and just like be completely ignored and to just never ever have anybody cause her any problems ever. I hope wherever you are, Britney, fellow comrade, Britney Spears, you're doing well. Mwah. Good luck. Britney Spears would be proud? I hope so. I hope so. Britney is actually a beautiful soul. Like, she actually is, right? Like, when I was young, I was one of these, like, Britney Spears, she's just a corporate bullshit. But, like, you realize that she is caught in it, too. Right? Like that. Remember when she shaved her head? Remember when she fucking shaved her head? Like, there's a lady who finally had a moment where she was like, this is all fucking bullshit. Like, this is all what I am doing and what I am engaged in is fucking nightmare bullshit. And she goes and she shaves her head, and I was just like, that's baller. Like, that's some baller, like, punk shit, man. Like, that's awesome. Robin, if you approve the new segment, it stays. Britney is based. Wonderful. What are the chords? A minor, E minor, C, D minor, and then back to A minor. And you can find that online, onward. It's super easy, super easy. It's a really simple song. Really. Yeah, I'm a simple man. I like simple songs. Oh, and I'll say it again after I've done something like that. If you are one of my Patreons, you can tell me any song, and I will learn that song, and I will perform that song. It might take me like a week. Give me a bit of time. But, like, any song you want. You tell me to sing it, I'll sing it. That's my new thing for Patreons. I should have had some water before I sang that song. That's why I gave it a 7. I was like, I've definitely sang that song better than that. Oh well. I only opened Google Maps to sing the song, so now here's Google Maps. 447 cases of COVID. This vaccine is working, man. This vaccine is working. Like, if we can sidestep variants. And now it's actually getting to the point where, like, we've got so many people vaccinated that we're actually starting to donate vaccinations, right? We're finally starting to do what we should have done in the first place, which is actually find people who are in high-risk situations and donate to them. So, who knows? It could happen. Vladimir Lenin died on this day, 1924. He dismissed our newspaper as a journal which speaks for British millionaires. Why are you booing me? I'm right. Yeah. Yep. That's The Economist. I think now it speaks probably for, like, Western billionaires more so. But if you're a millionaire living in America, you've basically hitched your wagon onto that star, right? Like, the billionaires own the society. You're just sort of being pulled around. Yeah, restaurant workers are quitting at record rates. Big fucking shock, right? Big fucking shock. Like, eventually there is going to come a moment, right? Like, and this is really important to remember, right? Corporate capitalists and their media outlets are never going to tell you that workers are on strike. They're never going to tell you that workers are organizing to overthrow. The revolution will not be televised, right? Like, the revolution will not be televised, straight up. So all they can do is report on, like, events that are occurring. And restaurant workers are quitting at record rates. That's important for businesses to know. That's important for capitalists to know. But they're never actually going to say, like, there's probably central organization happening, right? There's probably, like, people in the Black Lives Matter movement, for example. There's probably social organizers. There's probably people who have been actually, like fucking me, right? Imagine if I had been connected to a larger organization like Black Lives Matter this whole fucking time, instead of being just like an isolated boob who has no idea what the fuck is going on in any of these small groups, except Socialist Action, which is a group that you should join for sure. Support that. But like, there are social organizing happening in the United States. They just had an enormous protest movement through the Black Lives Matter movement where they like literally elected people. They literally got enough groundswell to get rid of like the neoliberal fucking idiots and actually elect people. And that's going to keep, and you think, what, that happened and they stopped? Nah. I would not be surprised to find out at all that these Black Lives Matter people are the people who are like, why are you fucking going here? Like, is it worth it? Get the fuck out of there. And guess what? Get the fuck out of there. Nobody should be working at these places. Whenever I walk by and I see like young people and it's like they're giving somebody a fucking cheeseburger, I'm just like, and I know that those people are just trying and they're doing their best and all of that, and I don't have any hatred or ire. Hate the game, not the player, right? Don't hate the player, hate the game. I just wish that we would actually, hate the game a little bit more. I just wish we would actually hate the game a little bit more. Anyway. Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horwath's letter to the Conservative Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, Ted Arnott, regarding his unprecedented unprofessional behavior. Well, what the hell happened here? What the hell happened here? Dear Speaker. Hold on. Get this back. Okay. Dear Speaker, your refusal today to recognize a member rising on a point of order is a clear violation of the traditions of this House. It is blatant effort to assist the government's passing legislation trampling on the rights of Ontarians. If you continue to violate the long-standing traditions of the House for partisan reasons, you run the very serious risk of losing the confidence of the official opposition. Sincerely, Andrea Horwath. Okay. I kind of just wish she had been like, Dear Speaker, get fucked, Andrea. I don't fully understand the story here, so I don't know that I can comment on it really. It'll manifest. I cannot stand the sexist ignorance, appearance. Okay, so this is just comment talk. Okay. I don't know this story. So it'll manifest. Things here are mostly back to normal as far as people going out, but things get edgy and tense on the weekend. You can see it in how people drive. Chris, I'm glad to hear that, bud. I'm glad to hear that. Just joined them this week. Wonderful. Capitalism is an ideology that will eat itself. Yep. Treating workers poorly for the benefit of the 1% is not sustainable, because eventually class consciousness in one form or another will spread. Well, and Devin, it's worse than that, right? That like treating workers poorly for the benefit of the 1% is not sustainable, not only because the workers will eventually get together and band together and realize, hey, wait a minute, there's millions and millions of us and like 20 of them, right? Like, who gives a fuck, right? Politics is fundamentally a numbers game. And if you come with 1 million people and they come with 1,000 people, you fucking win, right? You do. But even outside of that, capitalism collapses and destroys itself because eventually it refuses to pay the workers the wages they need to buy the stuff that they're making, right? That the capitalists want them to make a widget and then turn around and sell that widget to them. And we are saying, I don't have any fucking money, buddy. You don't pay me a wage. Right? So the whole system collapses, even if the workers don't rise up against the capitalists, right? But I recommend the workers do rise up against the capitalists, because once the system collapses back into feudalism, as it already has, once it collapses back down into feudalism, the capitalists are fine with just like grinding this into the earth. Like they're just fine with abandoning us to tents and shit, right? They're fine with that. Yeah, any system obsessed with infinite growth is going to fail eventually because it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's the stupidest thing a person can say. Like, oh yeah, my system, in spite of all of the evidence that we can see, in spite of physics, mathematics, history, psychology, sociology, right? Nature, in spite of all of that, yeah, my system can grow infinitely, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's something that's real and happens. Yeah, and adding on to that, climate change is not going to combat it. No, it's not, and it's doing. Too bad. I read it out loud. Devin. It's in the ether forever now. You can never take it back. Yeah, and that's a fine change, right? It isn't profitable to fix it. Yeah, they're not. They're genuinely disinterested. And I was just talking about this yesterday with the G7, and I took a lot of heat for it because people always mistake me actually saying the truth about what's going on in China for like complete abject praise for China, right? Like we can have like nuanced discussions about China where we're not completely demonizing them, but like they're building the Belt and Road Initiative, right? The Belt and Road Initiative is this enormous project that dwarfs anything that we have done here in the West for like what would you think? Like what was the last project of this scale that the West embarked in? Probably the moon landing, eh? I think it's probably the moon landing. Like I mean maybe the space station if you really want to go there, but that's like an international project. The Belt and Road Initiative is this like no, you did not. No, school YouTube, you did not. I don't know why you'd say that. That's, you're just kind of embarrassing yourself, bud. So, yeah, I guess that's true, Robin. That's a really good point, actually. Like, the Iraq War is probably the largest project that they've engaged in. The Iraq War is definitely like the largest project that they've engaged in. Meanwhile, China is like building this. China's building fusion reactors, guys. Like China's building like enormous. No, I deleted their comment because I don't need to see that bullshit. That's nonsense. And yeah, most of those types of people are cowards. There used to be a guy that would pop in and he'd drop some like Margaret Thatcher quote and then bail, and it's just like what a waste of everybody's time. Like what a child, what a friggin' child. And anyway, the stream is not about children. Well, it is about children, just billionaire children. I don't need to deal with somebody whose name's School YouTube. Like, well, what that? Anyway, yeah, Obsidian. I rather like that name, actually. Anyway, so China is building fusion reactors. China is building the Belt and Road Initiative. China is dealing with terrorism without dropping bombs on people. China is attempting to resolve, like, decades and decades and decades and generations of poverty. China is eliminating their deserts. It's pushing back against their deserts, right? Oh, something's happening, I feel. Let's, bye-bye. We got some kids coming in. Feel free to link the video, guys. I mean, I know you're cowards and you're lying, so it's totally fine. Have you ever heard of PragerU's homeschooling program? I have not heard of PragerU's homeschooling program. I can't imagine anything more absurdist and terrifying than any schooling program whatsoever, but a homeschooling program coming out of PragerU. Ooh, that sounds like a nightmare dystopia right there. That sounds brutal. Okay. This nonsense has derailed me a little bit on this, so I'm just going to go back to the headlines. Repeat after me. Landlords are leeches. Yeah. And especially with what's going on now. Like, BlackRock is buying up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties, homes, to convert them into apartments, right? Like, and it's like people who actually want to buy a house. Too bad, get fucked, right? Like we're literally like fighting billionaires. Like if you are a dude who's like an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, right? You know, people who traditionally have been at the echelon of the society. Well, guess what? Now you're competing with a guy who has $1 billion. You're going to lose. I'm about to cast my vote against Ford's use of the notwithstanding clause. A reminder that Ford got 40.5% of the vote last election. He doesn't speak for the majority of people in this province. We need a system that doesn't give somebody with 40% of the vote 100% of the power. I actually have kind of a different weird take on this, right? Like, my brother, who is pretty involved in Manitoba politics, I think he'll be the premier of Manitoba if he, you know, believes in himself. If he actually like believes in his heart, believes it, he can do it. Imagine dealing with a kid who's been watching PragerU videos. Oh my god. Oh my god. What a, like, yeah. Yeah. See, this is the thing. Like, dumb people exist, certainly, but like, politically dumb people are created and cultivated. Okay, so we're getting a bit brigaded right here. I'm going to start reporting you guys. Like, I don't need to put up with you guys. Yeah, we can just say that. Sorry, guys. Sorry about dealing with this nonsense. Like, just going to start reporting you guys. Like, you're coming in here, you're spreading lies. It's total bullshit. Like, oh yeah, 3 of you saw me do a video where I was saying the N-word. Yeah, super believable story, guys. Super believable. Like, fuck, children are so stupid, eh? Like, these dumb, like, these guys are probably what? You think 14, probably? Like, it's so stupid. I think we need PR, first past the post. But here's the thing. So what my brother's perspective is on this, and he's been involved in politics his whole his whole life, and his opinion really is like, it doesn't actually matter what your system looks like, right? What matters is engagement with the system. That's what matters. That fundamentally, politics is a numbers game, right? And it doesn't matter what your system is structured to look like. If you show up with 1 million and they show up with 10,000, you win, right? Like, and it really is that clean. And when you start to talk about like electoral front, which don't report them, it just encourages censorship. I don't need assholes to talk to me. That's yeah. I understand where you're coming from there, Jeff. But like, one guy coming in, yeah, 2 guys, yeah, 3. Get out of here. I'm waiting for the 4th one. This guy's, it's probably just one dude creating multiple accounts. China is not a socialist utopia. China is a society of 1.4 billion people rife with contradictions. Bourgeois ideology, unequal development, relative poverty all persist and must be fought. But let's be clear, none of these issues can be resolved via imperialist aggression. Yeah, that's absolutely the truth. That's absolutely the truth. Well, don't I want to scare him, Jeff? Isn't that the point? Anyway. Like, this is the thing about China, right? That I was talking about before all this kind of nonsense started. This, like, they are just fundamentally a group of people, right? They're just fundamentally a group of people who are trying, a large group of people, right? Like 1 billion plus people who are just trying to figure out how to improve their own situation and their own lot. No, of course not. Okay. And so they're just trying to improve their own situation. They're just trying to improve what's happening in their own society and in their own communities, right? Are there going to be ridiculous things that happen? Are there going to be contradictions? Is there going to be a struggle? Is there going to be difficulty? Obviously, right? Obviously. How do we know that's the truth? They're people, right? They're just people. And but right now, China is in this situation where any misstep it makes or anything it does, you know what, Vince? I like the way you think. I like the way you think. When you get so popular, trolls end up on the stream. You're right, buddy. Oh, you just like turned my frown upside down right there, buddy. That's right. I'm so famous and popular and people super love me. And when people super love you, others try to tear you down. I'm not going to let it get to me. Trolls are my success. I just kind of wish that they were clever. I just wish that they were being clever about it, right? Like it's just kind of embarrassing at this point how obvious they're being and childish, right? Like if you're gonna brigade somebody, how about doing something that's rational? Like and it's so dishonest. Like and this is how capitalists are going to fight, right? Here, let's turn this into a learning exercise, right? This is exactly how capitalists fight because they're naturally cowards. They don't actually have anything to say. They are stupid. They are illiterate. They literally only know how to use their money to throw stuff around. We're done with this. To throw stuff around. And so, well, what do? They come on here and they pretend like they actually care about this N-word issue, right? They turn into like a race or a gender issue because they're too stupid to do anything else. They can't engage me on actual arguments because they're so dumb and obviously illiterate and obviously moronic, right? They're so unintelligent, right? Just like capitalists, just like the billionaire class, right? They can't actually engage you on actual debate or terms, right? Because they don't know anything and they're too stupid. So what do? Right? They make up a story, right? A lie. So, like, have Western imperialists ever made up a story or a lie, right? Well, let's talk about one that's completely non-controversial. Let's talk about the lie they made up about Iran, right? So, Iran false testimony. I can never remember her name. Naira testimony, right? Was a false testimony given before the United States Congressional Human Rights Caucus on October 10th, 1990 by a 15-year-old girl who provided only her first name. It was widely publicized by Bush. It was their rationale to back Kuwait in the Gulf War, right? And it was a false testimony. It was completely lied. It was put forward by the CIA because they know that they can't actually engage on the world stage honestly. They know that they can't actually engage honestly, so they have to make up a story to try to smear their opponents to justify war, right? And what these guys are obviously trying to do is they're trying to get me to flare up and then say something that they can then turn around and report me, right? That they can turn around and ping me with something that YouTube can actually look at and say, oh yeah, can't have that. That's obviously what they're attempting to do. The problem is that I'm smarter than them, right? That they are stupid children who are too dumb to figure out that I'm not going to fall for that obvious grift because you're dumb and I'm not. Identity politics is obviously a weapon against the left. Anytime the Dems get close to accomplishing something, it gets derailed by an anti-Semitic scandal. Yeah, I think that's absolutely the truth, and it's a way to infiltrate organizations, and we know the CIA does this. You invade organizations, right, and you put people in place who create wedge issues, right, and those wedge issues are typically along gender and identity lines, right, and as long as you're dealing internally with these gender politics and with identity politics and race politics, well, then you can't actually deal with class politics, which that's what they're actually afraid of, right? They'll have big, long, robust conversation about race and religion and all of this kind of stuff. But the second money gets involved, the second class is involved, oh, do they ever shut up? They shut up quick, and they're not going to have that conversation. When you inherit wealth, you don't need to go to school for very long because it isn't necessary. Take a look at Doug Ford. Instead of education being necessary for the betterment of humanity, it is entirely related to jobs. Yep. Our education system is a vocational system, right? But they didn't actually tell anybody that. Like, everybody was told, like, follow your dreams, right? Go do your best, be your best self, all of this kind of stuff. They just kind of forgot to mention that, oh, by the way, if you're not actually able to sell yourself to the capitalist class, you'll be living in a tent in the middle of the city. Because identity politics doesn't work against the right wing. They take it as a badge of honor, as do their supporters. Well, and when the right wing engages in race identity politics, they get very dangerous about it, right? Like, for left-wingers, it turns into like moral purity issues, right? Where very small minor differences can end up tearing up the group. For right-wingers, it's like literally, are we going to go lynch these guys? Like, that's their version of identity politics, right? It could even be a CIA agent who just made those comments, maybe an intern or something. Well, I mean, it's embarrassing. They're just embarrassing themselves. I'm not going to believe that. It is odd, though, that like 4 different people, right? Or 4 different accounts, at least. I suspect it's just one person with 4 accounts, right? And they're probably such a huge loser that they just go around to channels like this. And it let's be really straight. It probably doesn't have anything to do with my channel at all. They're just going around and trolling because they're such a huge loser and they don't have anything better to do, right? Follow your dreams. If your dreams don't align with capitalism, well, too bad. Exactly, Lonnie. Exactly. If a CIA agent is in the chat, even I am going to feel flattered. Yeah, I think I would be flattered by it more than anything, really. Like, I'd love to talk to a CIA agent. I love it when Joe Rogan has Mike Baker on his podcast. Because Joe Rogan is like the gullible American, right? Like, he is just like the gullible American. And whenever CIA agent Mike Baker talks to him, I'm just like rolling my eyes the whole time. Because Mike Baker is all like, yeah, come on, I'm just a man's man. Like, yeah, I'm former CIA. As if there's such a thing as former CIA. Like, yeah, I'm giving you my own personal objective opinion now that I no longer work for the CIA. Wink. Right? Like, so obviously controlling dissent and controlling the narrative through people like Joe Rogan. And I would love to talk to a CIA agent because I think that they are fascist liars and they will always lie. Like, they are trained liars. They're professional liars. Like, I'd love to have a conversation with a CIA agent. All right. Only 3% of jobs posted on Tennessee's website offer more than $20,000 per year, right? Like, get a job. Just get a better job. Get a job. Get a better job. What are you fucking talking about, dude? Like, what are you talking about? Canada's Wonderland to reopen on July 7th with some restrictions in place. People got to get on that roller coaster. You gotta... Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Yeah, right. While China helps the entire world with vaccination, the criminal and inferior American regime and the Squad not only can't help anyone, they prevent countries like Venezuela from acquiring vaccines. Yeah. Venezuela paid for COVID vaccines for its people, but the bank blocked its payments. The illegal U.S. blockade of Venezuela is a crime against humanity that denies the civilian population food, medicine, and vaccines. Absolutely the case. Absolutely the case. There was a UN report that they sent someone from the UN, went into Venezuela, spoke with literally everybody, like every person who was important, including members of the opposition, including like all of the ministry, industry leaders, everybody. And they walked out being like, yeah, sure, Venezuela could like try to open up some of its markets, but these sanctions are the things that are really killing them. Like, get rid of these sanctions, man. Like, let's stop pretending. What happened to Andrew Yang? He simply disappeared from the news. Is he still running for New York mayor? Yep, he's still running for New York mayor. Andrew Yang is not well liked by the media, right? And he's not well liked by the media because he exists in spite of them. That he is one of these candidates that just kind of has his own actual grassroots support, and he doesn't actually need the media, right? And so the media doesn't like talking about him because his existence sort of shows their irrelevance, right? Yeah, exactly. Back to brunch. Exactly right, Onward. Back to brunch. Hashtag back to brunch. Absolutely. China bad. I don't know if that's true, but I'm too lazy to check, so check mark. And again, I really want to affirm, like, right now we're in a real China space, and that's partially Jen Zedong's fault, which, you know, they're just memes and stuff like this. But, like, we can have, like, a genuine conversation and critique China from, like, a genuine space, right? So, for example, if you want, like, if you want a negative take on China, I think what they're doing in Hong Kong is a big mistake, right? Like, and people are right to critique them. People are right to look at China and be like, what you're doing there is authoritarian. And my perspective is that ultimately it's not going to work, right? You have 7 million people who are in righteous protest, right? Like what China did to their democratic system makes what Doug Ford is attempting to do to ours look like baby's first election fraud, right? Like, it's just like literally they completely reformed the democratic structure of Hong Kong. They made it so that half of the parliament is, by the nature of the parliament, pro-Beijing, that most of the support of direct elections has been removed. They even removed people who were democratically elected because their views were anti-Beijing, right? It's a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake what they're doing. And it's not going to work. Like, that's the number one thing. That ultimately, if China continues on this path, the only way it's going to stand is if they start using military force. And if they start using military force, then they really just show the entire world that maybe they shouldn't be well trusted. Maybe we shouldn't be allowing China to embark so heavily on this Belt and Road Initiative, right? Maybe we shouldn't. So, like, and really it comes down, like, we here in Canada, like, we've had a separatist movement before, right? It's called Quebec, right? It's called Quebec. And what do? We let them vote. We said, okay, do you want your independence? They voted. It didn't happen because ultimately the people of Quebec understand that the thing you do as an independence movement is not actually declare independence. It's to threaten the Declaration of Independence to get concessions from the federated body, which is exactly what Quebec does. Quebec gets plenty of concessions from the federated body because of their continuous threat of separation. Hong Kong should be the exact same situation. That China should just look at Hong Kong and be like, okay, if you guys are going to be electing and you're going to be voting this way, then we have to negotiate on those grounds. We don't want you to be independent. Like, and for obvious reasons, they don't want Hong Kong to be independent. They don't need another United States military base here. right? They don't need a United States military base right friggin' here. They absolutely don't need that. And so, but what they are doing by taking over the democratic structure of Hong Kong and forcing it on the populace is guaranteeing blowback, is guaranteeing sympathy, constant sympathy for an independence movement, guaranteeing a constant and persistent kind of backdoor threat that exists here in Hong Kong, instead of looking at the people of Hong Kong and saying, okay, this is how you're voting, let's speak with these representatives, we don't want you to separate, what can we do? Like, what can we do? What can we do to help the people of Hong Kong? What prevents this separation narrative from manifesting? And taking over the democratic structure ain't it. Maybe you like kick the can down the road, right? You make it harder for them to ultimately achieve that, right? But I mean, China is a country that thinks in dynasties. It has a 100-year economic plan that it redresses every 5 years, right? Like, I just wish that they were using that same kind of thinking on Hong Kong. Instead, it looks very similar to U.S. imperialism in Hong Kong, and they can do better. They should do better, but now they've stepped in it. Right? Now they've really stepped in it. And it's very difficult for me to believe that when Hong Kong seizes its own democracy back, because that's obviously what the people want. You don't get hundreds of thousands of people in the streets because there isn't popular support, right? Like, I kind of used to have like CIA is involved in Western imperialists and all this kind of stuff. And someone just pointed out to me, they were just like, dude, there's hundreds of thousands of people in the street. There's hundreds of thousands of people in the street. Like, that's not Western imperialists. That's not the CIA. That's the people of Hong Kong. And what the people of Hong Kong want is they want their democracy. That's it. And they're going to get it. Whether it's now or in 5 years or in 20 years, they're going to get it because they live there, right? Like, the United States was literally dropping bombs on Vietnam, for Christ's sakes. Like, imperialists cannot hold. They can't hold these places, right? Eventually the United States leaves Afghanistan, Iraq, they leave these places, right? Because they can't hold them. Because the people that live there don't want them there. All of human history shows that this is the case. So this is already a failure. And China is going to make it worse for themselves as time goes on. U.S. invades country. We're spreading freedom of democracy. Just look at all the free and democratic governments we've created. For example, Pinochet's Chile. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And Pinochet, like, there's a reason why the people of Chile are saying things like, neoliberalism was born in Chile. Neoliberalism was born in Chile. It dies in Chile. There's a reason they're saying that, right? And the leftist swing that's happening all throughout South America is really enormous. Like, it's really enormous what's happening. If Brazil in their next election, because Lula has been completely vindicated, right? The reason why Bolsonaro seized power is because the CIA lied to everybody, as they do, and Lula got detained, and so wasn't able to run. And so Bolsonaro kind of just like walks through as the default choice. And now Lula has been completely vindicated. And so the next election, this vindicated individual who has been wronged by the right wing is probably going to win in Brazil. And if that occurs, that, like, where does the United States and the CIA have a foothold, right? They don't have a foothold in Venezuela, even though they're killing the place economically. They just lost an election in Peru. They just lost in Bolivia. They just lost in Chile. They've lost in Argentina, right? They're actively purging people in Colombia, which, you know, real good luck, by the way. It's very difficult for me to believe this can be maintained. Like, the American empire is falling. It's losing. And it's losing its grip on South America. And we could be looking, especially as the United States pivots its focus onto China, right? Well, if you're focusing everything you've got on China, and you're looking at China and being like, China, 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 well, you're going to give these guys some breathing room, right? What's 10 to 20 years of no United States or no successful United States intervention? What's that look like in this region? What's 10 to 20 years of a country not getting its ass kicked constantly by the United States look like? We may find out. I hope we do. I hope we do. Because near as I can tell, this place is beautiful. The people who live here are beautiful. The history is insane and rich and wonderful. And a culture that comes out of this that isn't being militarily suppressed is something I would like to see. Yeah, Ontario passes election spending bill with notwithstanding clause. Wigwith, I might be wrong, but I don't think the USA will be the dominant superpower by the end of this decade. I would agree completely with that, Wigwith. I mean, very simply because, like, the Americans have pushed their chips all in on oil supremacy, right? Their dollar is directly linked to oil. And should oil no longer be the dominant commodity because of, let's say, solar energy being cheaper to produce or electric vehicles being better to produce and cheaper to produce than fossil fuel vehicles, well, what's that do to the price of oil? Well, if demand drops, then so too does the price, right? And oil such as the tar sands here in Canada, all the dirty shale oil, all the fracking oil is now too expensive to produce, right? And all of this like war that they've fought for the last 20 years in this region is for nothing, right? Because they can't actually sell the oil anymore because it's actually cheaper to just build a solar panel, right? And and if that's the case, right? If oil declines in its value, well, guess what that's going to do to the American dollar, right? It's going to tank it. It's going to tank it completely. And these guys are just not going to be able to pay their bills. So you're going to see an enormous retraction in military adventurism in these regions. You're going to see an enormous, and like, you literally have Putin saying stuff like what's happening in America looks like the collapse of the Soviet Union, right? Like, that's not a nothing statement, man. Like, that's not a nothing statement. And like, we could be looking, I'm actually genuinely interested in like, what does a balkanized United States look like? Can the United States retract its military and retract itself within its own borders and then also maintain its unity? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Like, you do have places like Texas, you do have places like California, right? Like, these places kind of looking and being like, why are we fucking involved in this? An independence movement is already on the ballot in California, right? They're already voting on it. And so, it's very difficult for me to believe, and especially with this shit going on, like, it's very, very difficult for me to believe that the United States, and like, here's where it kind of gets horrific in my view, which is that when empires decline, right, when they go into a period of decline, as they do, because that's how empires work, the decline usually also comes with military aggression, right? And the military aggression is not rational. It's not well planned or orchestrated, right? It really is just like they point at a place and they say, we've always hated you. And they like just invade it. And it always fails because you're trying to launch a military campaign when you're at your weakest, when you're in your decline. And the reason why I'm so concerned about that is because typically when empires do that, they lash out against unpredictable targets. And I mean, the United States has nukes, right? The United States has nukes, which they've used before. This reminds me of the song "We Shall Not Be Moved," because despite coup after coup, leftism is still thriving in South America. Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely right, man. That's absolutely right. It's Che Guevara Day. Happy Che Guevara Day to you. Stony Creek murder suspects nabbed in Hungary. Wow. How about that? Capitalism. Capitalism is the only system that lets you chase your dreams. Also capitalists. Fuck art degrees, history degrees, literature degrees, or any other degree that's not profitable for capitalists to take advantage of. Right? Because it's not profitable to actually understand your culture. Right? It doesn't profit a capitalist to actually have somebody who understands society, who understands empire, who understands even how capitalism functions. This is like one of the things that I'm really, really learning about capitalists and capitalism, is that they themselves are quite illiterate of how their system works, right? You talk to a capitalist and you're going to talk to like a person who genuinely believes that what they are doing is helping, right? That they'll say things like, well, when they say it, we're job creators, right? They believe that. They believe that I am providing this job. Like it's that patriarchal, hierarchical mindset of like, I have the power to create jobs and destroy people's lives, and I choose to wave my noble hand and allow these people to sell themselves into wage slavery to me, right? And so the people who are running the machinery are completely delusional about how the machinery works. And they don't actually understand it. All they understand is, oh, this is making me money. Great. If it wasn't for blue states, red states, like the one I live in, would be even bigger shitholes than they already were. Oh, I see what you're saying there, bud. Yeah, like if it wasn't for the federated body, right? And that's always been the argument about the reason you have federated bodies, right? Is because if Alabama, let's say, actually you're in Georgia. Let's use Georgia. So Georgia, if Georgia was by itself, right, and then gets hit with a drought, right, which happens all the time, right, all the time. Droughts. I believe back in 2015, a drought took this region over pretty hard, right? And so if you're Georgia and you're by yourself and you're alone and you're in the middle of a drought, well, that's sort of Georgia, yeah. But if you have a drought and it causes crop failure, right, or a decline even in crops, well, you can have citizens that starve. You can have like citizens that fucking starve. It can be a major, major problem. So, but if you are, in an alliance with Alabama, right, and Georgia experiences a drought, but Alabama doesn't, right? Well, Alabama can come on over and be like, we don't want you to fucking starve, so here's some food, right? And like that sort of federated body, like that's the entire justification for it. Now, of course, the United States has gone off its rocker and has lost its mind completely, and it's just been like, yeah, we're going to take all the surplus value from this big continent here, and instead of doing things like building high-speed rail, attempting to push our deserts back, attempting to improve the place and make it actually livable, and instead of actually making it good, we're going to go bomb these people. We're going to go bomb the shit out of these people, steal all of their resources, do everything we can to make these people's lives a total fucking misery while pretending like we're the greatest place on earth, right? It's not going to work. It's going to collapse. And it's going to collapse for a very obvious reason, which is eventually the people who are living here will just be like, why are we paying for this? Like, what is it gaining us? Like, it's that kind of classic adage of like, what does it gain a man if he inherits the entire world but loses his soul, right? Like, ugh. Or Texas experiences a power outage. That's a great example, Lonnie. That's a really great example, right? So Texas experiences a power outage. Well, you got a larger grid here. And I've actually looked into how Texas's power grid is organized. It's literally like a cabal of cowboys. It's like a group. It's just like small groups of like. So like let's pretend like these roads are power lines just for the sake of argument. So like literally There'll be a power line from Houston to Dallas, and one guy owns that power line. So if you want to actually get power into Houston, you gotta talk to this guy, right? And of course the capitalists are gonna run it like threadbare. They're not gonna actually maintain their shit. Like, they don't care if the grid fails. What are these guys gonna do? What are they gonna do? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna actually go to your governor and your government and be like, hey, can we actually like nationalize these? Can these actually just be like publicly owned so that we can avoid situations like this? Well, of course that's not gonna happen. Why? Because the very people who own that infrastructure also own those politicians, right? Which is why fundamentally it's dangerous to have a billionaire. You should never have a billionaire in your society, because a person with $1 billion will naturally structure the society to benefit them and abandon everybody else. And that's just going to happen. We Americans hate each other far more than we do other countries. Yeah, that's a sad and unfortunate truth. Yeah, exactly. The grid failed before in Texas and they got sweet, sweet subsidy money, so why fix it? Right? Why fix it? If you're going to engage in socialism for the rich, which has become like the new in vogue way of saying fascism, right? Whenever you hear anybody say socialism for the rich, right? That's fascism, right? Mussolini defined fascism. He said fascism is better called corporatism because it is the merger of corporate or of private and public. Boink. So when the private sector fails and you come in and subsidize it to prop it up, socialism for the rich is fascism. Privatize everything. Government leads to human rights and comfort I don't like. I also really love how you're writing government, by the way, bud. Government. Cancel all student debt right fucking now. Hundreds of baby boomers are taking classes at the University of Minnesota as part of its senior citizen education program, and all for just $10 per credit. This is actually something that exists here in Canada as well. If once you're over the age of 65, you literally can just go take whatever class you want. You literally can just walk into any class you'd like. I mean, you got to like apply and like, you know, do the paperwork, but it doesn't cost you a thing once you're 65. And that was considered that's considered just like compassionate, right? You have all of these, you know, let's use the best case scenario, right? So you've got somebody who's like worked their whole life for a capitalist system, right? Who has poured everything they have into this endeavor, who probably doesn't have any money because he's working for capitalists, and now he's at the end of his life, right? He's retired. We've permitted him to retire, and so let's get the perspective of this working man into the universities and into the halls of power, right? Let's actually listen to what they have to say. And like, your best case scenario is that you get something new and something fresh, right? So I'm not actually against doing this, but I do agree, like, if we can do this for the baby boomers, we can do this for everybody. We could do this for everybody. It would be easy to do. It wouldn't, and it would be a massive benefit to the society. Like, it would just be an enormous benefit to the society. Yeah. Capitalist is Pride Month. We'll use the Pride flag in regions where it would lead to profit. Now buy my product. Exactly. No, and this is a truism of capitalism, right? That let's say that what I am saying and this thing that I'm doing here becomes the new thing in the culture, right? I am as anti-capitalist as it gets. I literally think that we should purge capitalism from our system. It should just be gone, right? It is obviously holding us back. It is obviously a parasite. And if the people in our society began to talk this way and think this way in large-scale ways, the capitalists would put whatever label we come up with and they would sell it, right? They'll sell it to us, for sure, as long as we buy, right? They don't care. They have no loyalty or honesty or integrity, right? They just want money. That's all they care about. So they'll absolutely sell you the rope to hang them. Publishers of anti-Semitic and misogynist Your Ward news lose conviction appeal. Good. You had me at lose. Oh yeah, these guys. This guy actually went to jail for a little while because he's like a total loser. I think he went to jail for a year, walking around handing out pamphlets saying that we should round up the Jews. Like, yeah. And Jordan Peterson defends this guy's right to say that, by the way. London attack suspect charged with terrorism. Good. Great. It was terrorism, right? He ran down 4 Muslims. Like, yeah, charge that guy with terrorism. Throw the book at this guy. Do not do this, right? Do not do this. Like, one of the things that I'm learning about myself as a person, right? Like, I actually genuinely do believe in, like, a form of corporal punishment. There are some things that you don't just get to walk back. There are some things that you don't just get to be like, I can be reformed. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't give a shit if you can be reformed. You ran down 4 Muslims because they were Muslims. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Like, quicker. Let's go. Let's go. We don't need to spend time reforming you, bud. Get the fuck out of here. If you work all your life, then retire by doing nothing. It is very detrimental to your health. The free education at 65 in Canada is very cool. It is very cool. And I had the pleasure when I was younger of being in some of these classes with some of these guys. And I could see that being there was like it's such a boon, right? It's such a boon. Like my grandma was one of these elderly people who just kind of sat in her room and stared out the window all day. That's all she did. She just sat and stared out the window, and that's what she kind of wanted to do, I guess. But I just like, no, like, go to the university. Like, go. Like, sit in whatever class you like. Whatever class you like. Yeah. So when exactly did it become a radical concept to think Jeff Bezos should pay more in taxes than an Amazon employee on food stamps? Because I see more people in D.C. upset that Bezos' tax info got leaked than the fact that he paid $0 in federal taxes for 2 years. This guy's an all-star, man. Expect to see this guy get suicided, by the way. I'm completely convinced of this. They've already shadow banned him. So if he tweets something, his own followers will see it, but they won't recommend it to anyone. And then if somebody retweets it, it doesn't get seen, right? So the only people who are actually seeing what Dan Price has to say are people who are the people who have directly linked him and stuff like this, where they've obviously like screenshotted him and put it up somewhere. But Dan Price, and if you don't know who Dan Price is, I forget the name of the company, but he owns like a credit card company, and he just decided that he was going to cut his own pay. He's the CEO of the company. He's going to cut his own pay, and he's going to make the minimum wage for workers in his country $70,000. So if you work for Dan Price, your wage is $70,000, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? You work for Dan Price, you get $70,000. And everybody shit, all the neoliberals and all the fascists shit on this guy. And they said, oh, it's not going to work, it's going to fail, all this kind of stuff. His company is more productive. His employees are happier. His company is making more money than it ever has before. It's turned into like a Harvard study, because Harvard is like, wow, neoliberalism says it shouldn't work, and it's completely working. What's going on? Because they don't actually study Marxism in Harvard, right? That's been completely verified by Richard Wolff, by the way. Richard Wolff is a PhD Marxist scholar who went to Harvard, got a degree from Harvard in economics, and says, I went and got an education at Harvard, and they didn't talk about Marx once. They did the largest, most skewering critique of capitalism that exists, and they didn't teach it at the most prestigious school in America. So, like, of course this is happening, because all of these guys that are at Harvard and Stanford and Oxford and all these guys are fucking illiterate. They don't know anything, right? Because they're not reading anything. They're literally being like, let's open what's his goddamn name? Let's open Adam Smith's book. Adam Smith. That's everything that's been written about capitalism, supply and demand, trade deficits. Okay, here's your degree. Bye. Like, they don't fucking know anything. And the stuff that they do think they know is just this incestuous numbers game bullshit that doesn't mean anything. That just collapses the second it's put under any stress whatsoever. So we literally are living in a system, like, it's like we inherited an engine, right? But there isn't actually an instruction manual for the thing. And the people we're training to repair and maintain and upkeep the engine refuse to acknowledge that there is the metaphor is falling apart. The metaphor is falling apart. Oh, sometimes I fail. But they're refusing to acknowledge that, I don't know, that the engine requires oil or something stupid like this, right? Like, they're just refusing to acknowledge how the engine actually works. And like a child comes along and is like, oh, hey, you gotta put oil in it. And they're just like, no, you don't. Shut up, we're the experts. We went to school for this, right? And meanwhile, the child is like, but I can see it with my eyes. You gotta put oil right in there. No, you gotta listen to the experts. So, like, somebody tells me that, oh yeah, I'm a Harvard economics professor, and I'm just like, oh, so you're illiterate, you don't know anything. Imagine being able to do what you want and actually enjoy life. Ooh, and they call you lazy for being a young person who doesn't want to work in a Burger King, being yelled at by angry customers. Yeah, like, imagine what kind of, like, sycophantic nightmare creature you have to be to actually think that jamming a kid into, like, a Burger King is a good idea. Like, literally, let's waste this kid's youth so that I can get a burger when I want. Like, how fucking fat and lazy are you, bud? Like, how fat and lazy... Like, no one is stupider and fatter and lazier than capitalists, right? Nobody. What they're literally asking of the entire society is that we structure the entire society so that they can go get a burger when they want, so that they don't have to make food for themselves, right? They want a society of slaves and servants so that they can be lazy, fat, and ignorant. Take a look at Doug Ford. Dan Price owes gravity payments. That's right. Dan Price is doing Henry Ford. Yeah, Henry Ford. Exactly. Andrew Smith, invisible hand of the market. Well, and what's so funny about Adam Smith's invisible hand of the market? First of all, thanks for being here, Andrew Smith. I appreciate everybody who comes in here, man. So happy you're here. When you actually read what Adam Smith wrote about the invisible hand of the market, he wasn't like praising it. He wasn't propping it up. He used the phrase "the invisible hand of the market" as like a warning against what capitalists will do to your labor market, right? And he used it as kind of like a metaphor. And he said, like, your labor market will be completely restructured as if by an invisible hand, as like a warning, right? And these sycophantic sociopaths who hold up a Bible they don't read and say that, you know, Jesus loves you, but you got to give all your money to me, even though Jesus said, give your money to the poor. Big fucking surprise. They didn't read Adam Smith either. Donald Trump's Coke button and him eating at McDonald's constantly. Yeah, look where that got him with his physical health. Yeah, he became the president of the United States of America. I'm just fucking with you, David. Wig. I'll say this. I learned a lot more working fast food in my teens than I thought. And I worked for 3 years in restaurants. It's a lot harder work than most people give credit. Yes, lots of people complain about fast food workers couldn't handle a single rush. Well, and not to mention, Wig, like I've worked retail for about 15, maybe even 20 years now, right? And the number one thing that these capitalists will never, ever, ever, ever give anyone credit for is dealing with the public, right? That retail workers and fast food employees and people who are dealing with the public learn how to de-escalate situations. You learn how to de-escalate things. You learn how to deal with outrageous, the Karens and the Kens of the world, that the stupidest bullshit, the absolute most asinine, rage-filled, angst-filled nonsense, right? That if these people were to put in front of a police officer, they'd get fucking shot over, right? And retail workers and fast food workers, like, in many ways, we're like sociologists. We're like psychiatrists. We're just like, everything's okay, right? Breathe, come down, right? We're all in this together. We can do this. I actually became known as the person in my store, as the person who dealt with trouble people, right? You get that angry person, or that flippant person, or that dismissive person, and like, they would come and they would pour their shit on me, and I would just like, there's a wall, it doesn't hit me, I don't care. And I would just be like, is there anything else I can help you with today? Right? What can I do for you? Is there anything else I can help you with today? And most people, once they see that I'm not going to rise to whatever occasion they want to put on, are just like, oh, well, no, I guess not. Or my favorite would be like, they were like, well, yeah, there is something you can help me with. You know, I need to find this thing, and I need to find that thing, and then I, you know, work with them, and we find what they're looking for, or I give them advice or any of that kind of stuff. And then by the end of it, they're like, you know, thank you so much for your help, right? And those were the moments that I really loved. Those were the moments where I really loved, where a person went from being like a complete and total asshole to just, and you could see that they realized that they were being an asshole, and they realized it, they knew, right? And they kind of just came down from whatever emotional high that they were on, because like, you got to remember, right, like, they are also a victim of capitalism, right? I know I use these dismissive phrases a lot, like the Karens and the Kens of the world and all this kind of stuff, but they are also getting their ass pounded in by capitalism, right? This system is driving everyone insane. And so when they come in and they pour their insanity down on you because they have nowhere else to put it, because they live in a society that demands they're constantly going, and now they got to be in this fucking store to buy this thing for their fucking kid, who they never get to see, and so they're going to replace their love for this child with this item that maybe the kid will look at for 5 minutes and throw in the trash, but at least the kid will know for one fleeting moment that their parent actually fucking thought about them and that they actually love. But now, fuck, I've got this phone call and I gotta go on this kind of fucking thing. Yeah, what do you need? Okay, I gotta buy this thing. Okay, look, motherfucker, I'm looking for this thing. Can you help me out? And I'm standing there being like, yeah, I can help you, bud. Okay, what do you need? Tell me about your kid. What do you know about your kid? And they just come down, and I've seen it happen 1,000 times, right? That you just create that mystical safe space for them, right? Where suddenly, like, the music is nice, the environment is bright and colorful and lovely, right? And I'm here. I'm not angry with them. I'm not upset, right? They are a victim of capitalism. And together, we can try to find humanity in that fleeting moment, right? We can just try to find a little moment where we connect and recognize one another not as employee and consumer, right? Not as a cog or a cog, but as two people, right? Who are meeting for no other reason other than the fact that capitalism is victimizing us both. And when they leave, I know for a fact, on several occasions, people leave that store and they want to come back and they want to talk to me, because when I talk to them, I'm not trying to get rid of them. I'm just trying to help them through. Some of the finest people I know are retailers. And they care and they love, and they don't view what they're doing as menial, and they don't dismiss it, and they don't scoff at it. They see themselves as genuinely contributing to a community and a society. They see themselves as part of a larger organism. They see themselves not as a business, but as a community outlet. They see themselves as increasing the likability and the beauty of their own communities and their own spaces. And the idea that these capitalists turn around and discard these retailers and discard people like this and just say, well, they're easily replaceable. Get fucked, man. Like, that's an upheaval of our entire community. Like, these retailers and these people are the beating heart of your commercial outlets, and you're just going to toss them away? Yeah, no wonder. No wonder people aren't coming back, right? Get fucked. Innovation created by capitalists is amazing. Look at all the different ways crispy chicken can be produced. Yeah, Ward, that's right. You nailed it, dude. I'm 19 and have never been employed because it's mind-numbing labor that nobody would want to do. It's not because I'm lazy. I sustain myself on fixing computers because I actually like doing that. Good for you, David. Good for you, bud. That's great. That's great. Keep following that, right? My father built an entire, a very successful business because literally one day somebody dumped a tractor, just broke down on his property, and the guy didn't want to pay to have it moved. And so my grandfather and my father just started tinkering with this tractor, and then just started selling parts off the tractor, and then used the money they made selling parts off the tractor to buy another tractor, and then started selling parts off of that, and then started figuring out how to fix these things. And then before they knew it, they had like a booming business, and it just latched on to like the Trans-Canada Highway came through, the automotive just upswing of all things, and like the enormous outflowing of just desire for what they were doing. And I talk to my dad all the time about this, and he says constantly, "Yeah, we just step one, there was a tractor, and now I got this like huge business thing that just occurred. It just happened." Right? I didn't even have time to really even think about it. It just was like, oh, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing that, and then we're doing this, and blah, 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 blah. And that's exactly what can happen with stuff like that. You know, fixing computers, and then suddenly you get well known for it, and then before you know it, somebody's looking at you and saying like, hey, can you like maybe come work for my establishment, or maybe you want to be a partner with me? Maybe there's somebody else you know who's just getting started, right? And like, and school's so fucking expensive and everything's so fucking ridiculous, but like, if you can get good at it, and the only way to get good at that kind of thing is just by doing it, right? So, and if you like it, just keep pulling that thread, bud. Not everybody gets to do what they like. I'm doing what I like right now, and there's no guarantee I'm going to be able to keep doing it. Which, by the way, now's a great time. If you're in the stream and you haven't donated by Patreon, consider donating by Patreon, because I would really love to keep doing this. And there's no guarantee that that's going to continue, that I'm going to be able to continue doing this. So even if you donate $1, anything helps. Anything helps. And hey, then you get to like pick the songs that I sing at 7 o'clock, and then you get to join the Discord, right? And keep the conversation going. Matt, therapist level retail, and they think they can get away with paying minimum wage for a job like that. Ridiculous. I've worked lots of retail jobs in my past, and they were some of the most challenging jobs. And Ward, you got me pondering the majesty of retail. Well then, Ward, that was a very successful moment for me then, if I got you doing that. Welcome back, Onward. You just missed a beautiful speech I gave. The whole chat is weeping. Well, and Matt, like the most expensive part of being a retailer is replacing people, right? That like replacing people and retraining them and getting them into position and all of that is very expensive to do. And it would actually be cheaper for these capitalists to pay their workers decently and keep them in place so that they're not constantly leaving, so that you're not constantly retraining, so you're not constantly in this like state of having to spend money on a person who is training that person, right? Which is exactly what they're doing. But capitalists are so short-sighted and stupid that they can't actually figure this out. I mean, they call them starter jobs, but they are anything but. They deserve much more pay. Well, and this pandemic really proved it, right? This pandemic really, really proved it, that a single person restocking shelves, right? A single person restocking shelves is worth more than Jeff Bezos to the society. If Jeff Bezos suddenly vanished and disappeared, no one would give a shit at all. No one would care. He's completely worthless. If the guy who's supposed to restock your grocery store suddenly quit, it'd be a big deal. Be a big deal. If the grocery workers in the grocery store that you go to went on strike, you would really, really care about that. If Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Bill Gates disappeared, Warren Buffett disappeared, no one would give a fuck at all. Wouldn't matter. Be completely irrelevant. Maybe actually an improvement. Yeah, it's called an efficiency wage. It's what Costco does. Yeah, Costco is what I'm kind of talking about, right? Like they have really doubled down on this idea, and I think they are partially co-op owned, if I'm not mistaken. You feel free to correct me on that. I'm not a god. Capitalists are concerned about short-term gains, exactly, which is why they fail. Like, you cannot structure a society that way. You cannot structure a society with short-term thinking. You just can't do it. Like, you can't just let an invisible hand decide. You can't just let chaos reign. You just can't. It's just no way to run a society. Because ultimately they don't care about the society. Because what they're going to do is, if the society collapses, they're just going to disappear to their island. They're going to go to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island, and they'll set up shop there, right? They don't give a fuck. Yeah, exactly. And that happened immediately onward. Grocery store workers were heroes. Now they're lazy bums who need to get back to work. And that happened instantly, eh? It literally was like, you're worthless and replaceable, and we can just get rid of you, and what you do isn't that important anyway. Oh my God, you're a hero. I can't believe it. Thank God you're here. The society would collapse without you. Get back to fucking work, you lazy bum. It literally was just like, just like that. Which just like shows you that they have no soul. They don't actually believe anything. They're just a slimy salesman telling you what they think you want to hear. How do you compare big box to Main Street retail? I mean, big box stores should be nationalized. Whereas Main Street retail, I think it's fine if it stays privatized. I think that's the big one. That, like, big box stores are essentially goods warehouses. And really are, like, if you think about, like, the structure of a city, right? And you want to have, like, large cities working and functioning, well, then you need to have big box stores. Like, you need them. You just need so much by way of goods, right? And the idea that these places should be privatized is childish, right? Because, like, the Westons aren't competing with anybody, right? There's no competition happening there, right? And the stores that exist are completely necessary. People completely rely on those stores, right? If these big box stores were to, like, if the No Frills that's nearby you or something like this were to disappear, it'd be a significant problem. So these places should absolutely be nationalized. Like, the idea that we are allowing some private monopolist capitalist to wedge themselves between food creation and food distribution is asinine. Get rid of these guys. They provide no value. And in fact, we know they fix prices. We know that they are making things harder. We know that they make things more difficult for us. Get rid of them. Whereas like small like Main Street retailers, like all that kind of stuff, yeah. If you want to have a private business, you want to run it, you knock yourself out. And in fact, I think that the Main Street retailers, like, they should have their rent lowered. Like, we should be able to talk. Like, the people who live in the community should be able to talk to one another and decide whether or not they want that business there in the first place, rather than instead of it being some private capitalist bullshit guy who's going to put in like an H&M or something, right, and gentrify the whole place. Maybe let the community come together and be like, what do we want there? There's this empty space here. What do we want there, right? It's easier to call people heroes than to pay them more. Well, especially if they fall for it, right? Especially if they just keep working, right? That's liberalism 101, right? If you can just pander and just promise to do something and people vote for you, then you never need to do anything. You can just promise to do things. How was your day today? Everything okay today? Thanks for asking, Vince. I actually had a really nice day. I went and saw my ex, who I love. I'm very, very, very fond of her. Transferred my dog to her. Got to spend time with her and her. I don't know what new girlfriend, I guess, would be the thing to say. Or new person. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Oh well, if she cares, she'll come at me. But yeah. So I had a nice day and spent some time. Went and got some burritos, which was nice, but definitely reminded me like somebody is making that burrito for me, and I actually feel really guilty about that. Doesn't change the fact that the burrito was delicious. They did really, really good work. Really, really good work. I hope that the ladies that were serving me have some ownership in the business. Yeah. So I'm doing okay. And it's funny because like this kind of anger that I'm feeling right now and this sort of angsty sort of stuff I feel like I'm getting into the chat, like, I think it's just who I am, man. I think I'm just an emotional person. I played a song today on the chat. I think that's part of the beauty of playing the song, is that it lets me just get into this like raw emotional space unequivocally and without shame or needing to seek permission, and then that energy just kind of carries through. Yeah. To be honest, some jobs shouldn't even be done by, well, and I'm gonna challenge this a little bit even more, Devin. Like, to be honest, some jobs shouldn't even be done by humans anymore. Some jobs shouldn't even be done, right? Some jobs shouldn't even be done. David Graeber, who's a wonderful economist, Dave, who I hope you're still here, Dave, reminded me of, created a book called Bullshit Jobs, where he went through jobs that exist in the American labor market and just pointed out that these are pointless. They're a waste of time. They're completely worthless, and nobody should do them, right? And there's an enormous amount of jobs that exist that just like, why would anyone do this job? Like, it's pointless. And so, but I agree with your larger point, right? Automation. Computers are getting powerful and small enough to serve in roles like ATMs and self-checkout. And well, and Devin, on top of that, like, it used to take, and not long ago, it used to take about 90% of the populace to produce all of our food, right? To get people in the fields, to plow, to do all that stuff, it took 90% of the populace in order to do that. And then your administrators would be like your lords and your ownership class and all that kind of stuff, who would at least be attempting to administer this, right? Like, but now automation has gotten so good in agriculture, that it's something like 5% of the population now, right? So that's an 85% decrease, not 85, 75% decrease in the amount of labor required to produce all our food. And we're just dealing with the fallout from that still, right? Where do all those people go? And then on top of that, we completely gutted our manufacturing base, right? Sent all those jobs overseas. And so you can't be in agriculture anymore because it's being completely automated and streamlined, right? You can't be in manufacturing anymore, because that's all done, right? Like, that's all gotten fucked off. So what are we doing? We're, like, flipping... like, that's our economy. Our economy is flipping burgers for one another. It's embarrassing. We can do so much better than this. But instead of that, we have to pay fealty to a capitalist class that is worthless and provides absolutely no value to us whatsoever. And I have not read Mark Fisher Onward, so here. Looking up, looking up, looking up, Mark Fisher. Looking up, looking up, looking up, Mark Fisher. Young guy. 68. A little bit older than my brother. His blogging alias K-Punk. I like him already. Like him already. A guy born in the 60s who calls himself K-Punk? I'm in. Let's go. Capitalist realism, is there no alternative? The Wire, Fact, News, Statesman, Sight and Sound. Okay, but I'll look into this guy. Not right now, obviously, because, like, unless you have a link. Like, if you've got a link... Oh, here, let me change this. If you've got a link, you go ahead. Something small, though. Something small. Don't go crazy. Imperialists obviously have a severe lack of irony. The war zone, China's dismantling of CIA spy ring highlights growing dystopian-like surveillance state. Yeah, that's hilarious. China's dismantling of CIA spy ring highlights growing dystopian-like surveillance state. Like, think of the lack of awareness you have to say this out loud. I only stream on weekdays, Vince. It's 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh yeah, Netanyahu, he gets removed. He gets replaced by another Netanyahu. That's all. I love that, though, Net in Yahoo. Oh, he's dead now. He's young. What happened to him? Did he get suicided? Oh, never mind. Sadder than that. He had sought psychiatric treatment in the weeks, but his... Yeah. Suspected overdose. He was admitted to a hospital. Depression. Yeah, no, that's not being suicided. That's kind of like looking into a mirror a little bit, unfortunately. I hate to say that out loud, but it's the truth. Like, writing a book like this in 2009, seeing the coming collapses, not seeing anything being done about it, yeah, I get it. I get it. Bezos has a $600 million contract with the CIA with face recognition. Well, and like, I keep saying this out loud, and I'm waiting. There's going to be an article, or there's going to be something, and it's going to completely prove this, because this is just a hunch I have. We all know about these Amazon booths, right? Like, we've all heard about this, right? If you haven't heard about this, Amazon booth. So this is a booth that Amazon is putting in the middle of their warehouses, where a worker can go, right, into this little secluded box. And it's pitched, of course, it's Amazon, so it's supposed to be like meditative or something. But there's a friggin' computer in there, right? Look, she's sitting like at a computer, right? So she's gonna, screaming chambers, yeah, all that kind of stuff. And of course, they'll pitch it that way too, screaming chambers, any of that kind of stuff, whatever. Like a secluded place where you can go and be alone and like do something. But there's a computer in here. You're telling me that Amazon, who works closely with the CIA, who, if you don't know, right, the CIA, MK Ultra, right, the CIA Project MK Ultra, right, to develop, identify drugs, to force confessions through brainwashing, but my favorite is the numerous studies in hypnotism, right? So while they're torturing people with LSD and like all kinds of drugs and things like this, they're also studying hypnotism, right? And we know that that people can be hypnotized with computer screens. I can't show it on the stream, but there's a fellow by the name of Darren Brown, right, who did this, who hypnotized somebody. It was a dude who was playing a game with like one of these gun games where you shoot zombies, right? The guy hypnotizes him through the screen, knocks him out. They move him to an empty like factory space, like an industrial space, where they've hired actors to pretend to be zombies, and the guy believes that he's in a zombie situation, starts shooting these zombies, right? Ends up like in a secluded room, screaming his head off because he's freaking out, because yeah. The hypnotist comes back in, re-hypnotizes the guy, they take him back to the bar, put him back in front of the screen, right? Wake him up, and the guy like wakes up, looks at the gun, looks at the screen, is like, wow, what a great game! Yeah. Very believable. Very believable that Amazon would attempt to hypnotize its own workers to get them to shut the fuck up and stop unionizing. I absolutely believe this. Absolutely believe this. Organizations like the CIA and DHS need to be dismantled. I mean, like at this stage in the game, the whole federated body of the United States needs to be dismantled. It doesn't work. Like, they need to redraw their constitution. Like, the whole thing needs to be redone. Like, it's really, really obvious at this point. Like, the capitalist system cannot be reformed. It cannot be reformed. Oh yeah, brief history of gentrification in Milan. Gentrification, it's real. Libs on Twitter claim lib is a slur. I'm just gonna move on from that. That's dumb. Like, the shit that people call me, like, toughen up. The trouble is, of course, if liberals actually toughened up, they'd probably stop being liberals. Yeah, the USA is a failed experiment. Like, straight up. And I think that statement is actually going to bear out as time moves forward, right? That, like, it's just going to get more and more and more and more obvious to everyone that this experiment has failed. And, like, it's going to get really obvious when, like, South American nations start having an improved economy, when African nations start to have an improved economy. Like, Libya, Gaddafi proved it could be done, right? Gaddafi proved it could be done. Like, the Libyan economy was the strongest on the continent, and stronger than many European nations, right? Because of what Gaddafi was doing in the region, which is the reason they invaded and killed him, right? They had to kill Gaddafi because Gaddafi was proving that the American neoliberal system doesn't work, right? That it never worked. Lib is a slur. Go touch grass and look at some birds. That's like the nicest dismissal I've ever heard, dude. Like, that's like the nicest way to go tell somebody to fuck themselves. That's the nicest way to tell somebody to slag off. Just literally, like, go touch grass and look at some birds. Like, just get out of here. Go touch grass and look at some birds. I like that. I'm going to steal that. That's nice. American music is pretty awesome. Is it? No. Like, I genuinely think that I shouldn't comment on, like, culture is always, like, the music that comes out of a culture is always an honest reflection of that culture, even if it's cultivated by the corporate state, right? Like, and so, do you have any, like, what do you like, Ward? What American music would you say? Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, liberals, but fascists deserve free speech too. Yeah, remember when it was like, remember when we used to, like, really worship people who killed Nazis? Remember that? My grandparents killed Nazis. Like, I knew people who killed Nazis, and we were supposed to, like, think that those people were heroes, right? We'd have parades for those people, right? We'd celebrate. We have, like, holidays to remember these people, right? Where we all stand up and say, thanks for going to kill all those Nazis, right? And now we're supposed to, what? Let Nazis stand up and be Nazis in the society? No, we used to kill those people. The NDP are currently moving a deluge of unanimous consent motions in the legislature in an effort to delay debate on the Ford government's notwithstanding clause bill from Richard Southern on Twitter. Well, it didn't work, but that's nice. That's nice. You got to do what you got to do. Oh yeah, Pete Seeger, folk, jazz, rock and roll. Yeah, all the good stuff. All the good stuff. Hey, and Ward, if you want me to play a song, you just let me know what you want to hear, bud. I'm not going to play it today, but I'll go find it, figure it out. Yeah, the more Canadians find out about Aaron O'Toole, the more unpopular he becomes. Well, and also the party. Like, the party he represents, right? Like, Canadians... like, I'm actually... in Aaron O'Toole himself, I actually look like, and I go like, oh yeah, you seem... I disagree with him on many things, but he seems reasonable, right? And he seems like he's presenting himself as reasonable... And I look at his history and his career, and I'm like, yeah, he's stepped in it a couple of times and he's done kind of stuff, but I don't see like an evil demon, right? I don't see somebody who is. I see just like a dude who is kind of just like a product of his surroundings, right? American Pie. You want me to play like a 15-minute song, Ward? Yeah, Ward, I'll learn to play any song you want. Okay, can you do Beethoven's entire Ninth Symphony, please? Sure, bud. American Pie. I'll figure it out. But, like, the truth of the matter is, like, it doesn't matter if Aaron O'Toole ends up being, like, a good man or not. Like, his party is shit. Like... his party is just super garbage. Mach Deutschland von Frische. Fascismus. Fascismus frei. Freedom fries. The International in English. Yeah, the more Canadians find out about Aaron O'Toole, yeah, like, the party is crap. Like, they had an opportunity. Like, not only is their moral obligation to their society so distorted and twisted that they refuse to actually acknowledge the existence of climate change. Like, these guys got a bill put in front of them as a party. That's all it said. Climate change is real. We should do something about it. Right? That's it. That's what the bill said. Or the it wasn't a bill, but like that's what the motion said. They voted down, right? Which says two things. One, they lack the moral credibility and the foresight to actually be able to be the leaders of the country. And then two, they lack the cynical politicking required to be the leaders of the country. Like, they didn't even have it in them to lie. To just say, like, well, everybody wants us to say this, so we'll say it. Right? Like, that... No, it turns out that they're going to stick to their guns, they're going to stand by their morals, and their morals and their ethics is the society should be destroyed and we should open up the sky to God to fuck us. That's what they want. They've said it. They've told us. These are chaos death knights. And Aaron O'Toole standing there with a nice smiling face being like, I'm here for Canadians, doesn't fucking change that. Right? The Conservative Party of Canada is a dangerous party that needs to be obliterated from our discourse. Like, the conversation should be with the right-wing party, the Liberals, who are the right wing, the center leftists, yet to be seen, honestly, NDP, and then some other rational party over here, like, let's say, a communist party. ExxonMobil, climate change is happening, we better not tell anyone, and instead spread lies and disinformation. Yeah. How these people have not been arrested and put on trial for treason, like, that alone, like, that's a massive, massive, massive national security issue, right? Like, in regards to the climate change issue, like, how are there not generals standing up and saying, like, this is a massive national security issue? Like, if this was an invading army, right, and ExxonMobil acted in that way, people will be calling for blood, right? But because it's the sun itself, right? Like, we're just a nation of children. We're just like, we cannot figure out that, like, no, You need to actually, like, have a plan, right? You need to actually have a plan. And if your plan is no plan, then you have no plan. And the sun is going to punch through the atmosphere and burn us off the face of the planet. Like, Ontario vaccination registration website design and oh, it's the Beaverton. Ontario vaccination registration web designers unprepared for possibility of people using site. That's actually really good. The Beaverton always nails it, dude. They're great. Whoever's on their writing team, man. I will watch whatever they produce. Thousands of losers wait in line for retail stores rather than have everything shipped to them by evil conglomerate. Another Beaverton. Nailing it. The generals will come out when the poor overrun the gates of the crisis zones they put them in. Yup. Yup. National work walkout. They can't fire all of us. Yup. Is there a date on this? Oh, there you go. So August 1st to 7th. Okay. 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 Dear Fight for 15 People. Grow a fucking spine. $15 an hour is a miserly crumb that doesn't even begin to reach the value of your productivity. If you actually had a spine and wanted to ask for not nothing, not just a subsistence bullshit wage, you would be setting your wage at productivity, which means that you would be earning probably about $25 an hour instead of this whingingly pathetic, absolutely miserly $15 an hour that these capitalists are only grinding your gears about because they don't want you to have any victory whatsoever. Ask, like, stop asking. Start demanding. The capitalists are the worthless ones, right? Stop being like, oh, but please, sir, can I please just have enough to have a room with just like a cot in it, and please, fuck that. You're the one that's valuable. You're the one that's doing the work. They're worthless. They're lucky if they get a penny out of you, right? They should get fuck all because they're pointless and worthless. Tell them to slag off. Stop asking for zero, which is like $15 an hour. Fuck that. Fuck that. Like, stop asking for a living wage and start asking for a thriving wage. Stop whinging. You're more important than they are. By a lot. Stop. Yeah. China went after their business leaders for corruption of powdered milk. Yep. They killed some of those guys, man. Some of the like, why do you think the capitalists are so like China and they're losing their mind about China? It's because China hangs billionaires. You fuck around, you find out, man. In China, like, and you can have a debate about whether or not that's okay and all that kind of stuff and all you want, but like, you know, if I'm here in Canada and America being like, hey, our billionaires are guilty of like high level crimes, can we like even fine them? No. Give them more subsidies? You start getting ideas. Let's hear what this lady has to say.
Judge, if the government is on the right path and if they think that this government has their best interests at heart. Over the weekend, Premier Ford recalled the legislature for emergency night sessions to rush through a bill that uses the notwithstanding clause overriding charter rights for the first time in Ontario's history. We could be working on a plan to reopen schools safely this September, but instead we're debating a bill that allows the government to disregard court orders. We could be fixing the eviction and homelessness crisis, but instead we're dealing with a bill that allows the government to muzzle their critics. We could be spending time addressing the skyrocketing overdose deaths in this province, but instead we're spending time on a bill that's unconstitutional. We could be looking to provide more support for small businesses, but instead we're looking at a bill that doubles the donation limit for those with deep pockets. We could be creating a strategy for action on anti-racism and Islamophobia, but the only strategy this government is interested in is how they can cling on to power. We could have an emergency debate on searching the grounds of all former residential schools, but instead we ended up having an emergency debate on how this government is attacking people's rights and freedoms. Speaker, this government puts so much time and energy into things that are damaging, when there are so many critical and urgent issues that need to be addressed. We need to address issues that help the people, not on how this government can help themselves get re-elected through abuse of power.
That's right. Whatever she said was right. I didn't just leave to pee. Yeah, but my small boat dealership. Please, sir, can I have enough to live in an apartment with 2 roommates instead of 3? Have you seen the state of unions in America? Yeah, it's sad to see the amount of people falling for anti-union propaganda. Propaganda works, man. Like, it works. Like, if you bombard people with bullshit, people really have, like, people don't have the level of bullshit detector. And I'm going to be shutting down about 10 minutes here anyway onward. Thanks for being here, bud. Like, people are, like, we're just fucking monkeys, man. Like that's the thing. Like we act like we're we're gods, and we act like we have this enormous kind of thing going on. But, like, we're just, like, one level above monkeys, right? And we can be, like, really tricked with bright lights and flashy slogans. Like, it's happened over and over again. And the idea that, like, we're letting people, like, bombard us, constantly bombard us with messaging, right? It's gonna sink in, man. Like, it's gonna sink in. And people have this really, like, brutal thing that they do, where if you see on a big screen a slogan or an idea, or you see a politician pounding on a slogan or an idea, you get it into your head that that's how everyone around you thinks, right? So even if you don't believe the slogan or believe what's being said, you will still support and espouse it because you want to be in the in crowd. And clearly everyone must think this way, or else they wouldn't be bombarding us with the message, right? This must be what everybody is saying, right? Obviously that must be the case. And so what you end up with is you end up with a populace of people who don't believe the slogan that they're espousing, and the only reason they're espousing it is because they think their neighbor is. Like, I've seen this. I went to the East Coast. I found a ton of new of NDPers. When I went to the East Coast, I found a ton of NDPers who all vote Liberal because they didn't think that their neighbor was an NDPer. Make America Great Again. Yeah, that's a sloganeering. Like, and it follows the rules of slogans, right? A slogan needs to be 5 words or less. You can push it into 6 if, like, some of the words are, like, small, like, is it? Like, if you say, like, is it? You can kind of smack that together. Or if there's already, like, an established phrase, like what do you know? Right? Like, what do you know is technically 4 words, right? But what do you know is 1 word in a slogan, right? What do you know about chips? Right? There's a great slogan for a chip company. What do you know about chips? It's 3 words. Technically, it's like 7, but what do you know is 1 word. Because it's so, like, it's so ingrained, right? Like, what do you know? That's 1 word. So I see this all the time in politics. I see this all the time. People who, like, try to create slogans or try to create ideas, and it's more than 5 words, and I'm just like, Nope. Like, make America great again. Right? For the people. Right? Hope and change. Like, and it's tough to do. It's tough to do because you need to distill very large ideas into very, very small sound bites and small reductive, like... Butilla should lead the ONDP after Andrea. She'd make a great leader, I think. Honestly, I don't know anything about her, so I can't say a word. But I do think that there's a couple of good candidates in there, and we'll see what happens with Andrea. Like, I do think that Andrea has a the polling is showing that, like, Andrea, like, the NDP right now are at 33%, and the Ford administration is at 37%. Given that we haven't even begun the election, we're still like a year out from the election. This is very bad news for the Ford administration, right? This is very bad news for the Ford administration. They do not want to be that close. They do not want to be that close right now. And it really shows the desperation that they're using this notwithstanding clause. And so, and Andrea also has like a benefit of, like, her entire career has been about making inroads, right? That Andrea Horwath's entire career has been about making inroads in places. So she'll walk into a city or a town where there's never been NDP support before, and she will turn that town or turn that ward in that district, and it'll turn into an NDP riding. But while she's doing that, she loses seats elsewhere, so her power remains pretty stagnant, pretty stable, right? But she rightly views this as a win, because it's harder to turn a place that's never been NDP than it is to go back to a place that has been NDP and flip it back NDP. And so her entire strategy going into this particular election is to hit all of these wards that she has at some point in her career turned NDP and hope that they all turn NDP at once, right? And if that happens, it will actually be the full culmination of her entire career, which is long, right? She's been the leader of the NDP for a long, long time. And if she manages to do that, have all of these wards go NDP all at once when it really fucking mattered, that's like sports movie. That's like touchdown, slow motion run into the end zone, hit the golf ball into the hole, score the winning point, like slam dunk, swish, crowd cheers and goes nuts, swelling music, right? Like that's her journey, if that manifests, and that's how she wins, right? And she can win. She absolutely can win. This narrative that's being peddled around that Andrea Horwath can't win this election is bullshit propaganda being espoused by her opposition, right? Anybody who thinks that Andrea Horwath cannot win this thing is just in opposition with her. It is her game to lose. And, I mean, the NDP are well known for losing games that they should win, so we'll see. No, I haven't attended any ONDP events online because, like, if I have to be frank about about Andrea Horwath and the NDPers, they're still fairly capitalist. They still think that this thing, like, they're essentially liberals. So I don't really put too much weight behind. Like, I don't expect a lot. I mean, I expect something, right? Like, I expect them to act moderately rational, but I don't expect them to. Anyway. Techno hyper peer pressure. The economy is going to roar back. Till then, the liberals got our back. Yeah, the economy is going to roar back. Yeah, that's right. People who have no money definitely spend a lot in an economy. Yeah, that definitely happens. People who have no money and work, if they do find work in these shitty jobs that don't pay any wages, yeah, that's definitely how you build a roaring economy, right? Make sure nobody has any money, right? Impoverish the entire society. Make sure nobody has money or assets or anything. And then just open business up, and then everything should be fine, right? That's how you build an economy. I think it's already made it worse for him, Ruth. Like, I think that Ford is going to end up alienating a lot of people from this. That, like, people, like, you can do a lot of shit. You can do a lot of shit. But you can't mess with people's rights to and, like, the fact that this legislation was deemed unconstitutional in the first place, and that Ford is shoving it through with this non-disclosure clause, like, no. People don't stand for that kind of shit, man. They don't like it. Even right-wingers. Like, it's going to blow up in his face. He's completely desperate. That's what it is. It's completely desperate. All right, guys. I think this is going to be the end for me. We're reaching the end of it. Liberals have no spines. They do what is acceptable in the prevailing culture. They don't want to fix issues. They want to virtue signal without doing anything to solve them. Yep, nailing it, Devin. Nailing it. So at the end of this, if you're sitting there and you got like $1 jangling around in your pocket, maybe send it my way. I wouldn't mind that at all. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe. Tell people I exist. Tell people I exist. Every time I get a subscriber, it makes my heart go like, yay. I finally got out of my 520 slump. I was sitting at 520 people for the whole last week. And now it's starting to go back up again, so everything's going great. I know that you guys are doing really well out there. Considering the circumstances that we're under, this world is ridiculous. Everything's imploding and exploding. I know that you're making good decisions. These capitalists, instead of spending the money to help anybody, they're spending billions of dollars to gaslight you, right? Don't let them. These guys are fucking evil sociopaths. Just don't fucking let them. All right. Good luck, you guys. We're going to need it.